Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, Adi and WhatIf, with another fanfiction. This is the first part of WhatIf Deku woke up with amnesia at UA and became a top for Class 1A. All credits for this video go to their respective authors, so please support the real author. Check out the link in the description for more details. Please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. I need to warn them. You saw the news. Now that the villains have found out about the field trip to the USJ, it's only a matter of time before they go after those kids. Your loud declaration is met with a tired sigh. And what do you hope to accomplish by warning them? Do you really think you actually have the power to change the future? You are too naive. What makes you think the heroes will even take your warning seriously? While you cannot deny that there is some merit to those words, you find yourself unable to back down like the many times you have in the past. Even so, I can't just sit back when I know those kids will be put in danger like that. I might not be able to stop the attack from happening, but maybe I could convince the heroes to bring more teachers to watch over the class. You brace yourself for another rebuttal but are surprised when the other remains silent. Then, after a few minutes pass, a calculative gaze fully focuses on you, making you stiffen involuntarily. You've never liked being on the receiving end of that look. A chill runs down your spine when you see the grin aimed your way. Now, that sounds like an interesting experiment. You cannot change the future, but I wonder, can you make alterations to certain events? Or are things fated to remain exactly the same? Perhaps a field test is in order. Just as you open your mouth to question those words, a hand reaches out toward you, and then everything goes dark. You are surprised to see an unfamiliar ceiling when your eyes open. What's even more bizarre is the fact that you cannot remember falling asleep. As the gears in your mind begin to whir into motion, your other senses start to kick in. Despite not being able to recall going to sleep, you are most definitely lying on a bed right now. There's also a faint hint of antiseptic in the air which gives you a feeling of familiarity and wrongness simultaneously. Before you can ponder the strangeness of that feeling, a deep voice that sounds slightly familiar interrupts your train of thought. So, you're finally awake. Immediately, you jerk forward into a seated position and realize there are 3 other individuals in the room. Your eyes widen in recognition. There's a short elderly woman with gray hair tied up in a bun with a syringe looped through it. As you take in her visor and lab coat, you realize this is the youthful heroine, Recovery Girl. Using a syringe-styled cane, she moves closer to the right side of your bed while the other 2 remain seated on the other side. Recovery Girl gives you a kind smile. "Hello, dear. How are you feeling? I was quite surprised when you were brought to my infirmary unconscious. There don't appear to be any wounds on you, but I know better than to just assume things." For several seconds, you just gape at the woman. You can't believe you're actually talking to a real hero, and brought to her infirmary, no less. Then, her words completely register in your mind, leaving you terribly confused. "I was found unconscious, but how did I get here? I don't remember doing anything that would lead to me getting hurt. I mean, I feel fine, confused but fine." How interesting. So, you have no recollection of what brought you to UA. Turning toward the speaker, you see an animal that resembles a cross between a bear, mouse, and dog. You quickly realize this nicely dressed hybrid is the principal of UA, Nenzu. The remaining figure sitting beside the principal is a tall male dressed in dark clothing with a long, gray scarf wrapped around his neck. He has long, messy black hair and dark eyes. Your eyes widen when they fall on the latter. You'd recognize that tired yet somehow also alert gaze from anywhere. You're Eraserhead, the teacher for Class 1A. His eyes narrow at your words, but your rambling continues unhindered. "I came here to warn you. You're planning on taking your class to the USJ for a field trip soon, right? You can't. Your words abruptly cut off when a searing pain invades your senses, causing you to choke on your words. Despite your best efforts to continue talking, the throbbing in your head continues to get worse, making it near impossible to gather your thoughts into a coherent sentence. Cradling your head in your hands, a pained groan escapes your lips. Dimly, you're aware of a small hand on your back and that someone is speaking to you, but you're unable to make out any of the words because of the pounding in your ears. Then, like magic, the pain is gone. 1 minute, you're in excruciating pain, and the next, you feel fine with your mind completely clear. You can't remember what you were previously thinking about to cause yourself such pain, but aside from that, you're okay. That's when you notice that Eraserhead is now watching you with red eyes as his hair somehow manages to defy the laws of gravity by floating upwards. You stare at him with amazement. "You erased my quirk. You got rid of the drawback. Even though he just met you, even though he's obviously wary of you, he still helped you when he realized you were in pain. He really is a kind person, as expected of a hero teaching at UA." You bow your head gratefully. "Thank you." With a blink, red eyes turn back to black, and his scraggly hair falls to his shoulders. His gaze carefully scrutinizes your face after you lift your head. "What exactly is your quirk?" Upon noticing Recovery Girl's worried frown, You quickly reassure her that you're fine before answering Eraserhead's question. My quirk is called Prophecy. It allows me to see visions of the future. Unfortunately, I can't control it, so I get these visions randomly. I can't choose when I get them or what kind I'll get. Nezu rubs his chin thoughtfully. I see. So, just now, you were trying to warn us about a vision you have had about Class 1A, correct? And by the looks of it, your quirk does not allow you to freely share the contents of these visions. You nod your head, grateful that the clever hybrid was able to already get such a clear grasp of the situation. Yes, I can't say for sure why I have such a drawback, but it's true I can't tell others about visions that pertain to important events such as this one. Anytime I try, I get an awful headache that makes it near impossible for me to think or speak. Recovery girl tuts as she shakes her head. Yet you still tried anyway. That was too reckless. I understand that your message was urgent, but I cannot approve of you willingly putting yourself through such pain. Surely, there must be other options. Sheepish, you avert your eyes as you rub the back of your neck. I'm sorry, I got too excited. I was so desperate to tell him that I forgot about the consequences of trying. The older woman shakes her head with a huff while Nezu chuckles at your explanation. Meanwhile, Eraserhead just sighs as he puts in some eye drops. So, you're here because you wanted to warn us about something happening at the USJ. If you can't tell us what exactly you saw, how were you planning on explaining things then? Honestly, you hadn't planned that far ahead. While you do remember planning on coming here to warn them, you don't recall actually coming up with a way to do so without causing yourself harm. Before you can tell him that, the principal claps his hands together, gaining your attention. That's the wonderful thing about communication. There are many ways to get a message across aside from simply speaking. Tell me, would you get a headache if you tried to write out your vision? You nod glumly. Unfortunately, yes. I really don't understand how it works, but for whatever reason, I can never reveal all the details of my visions. His eyes gain a calculative look. All you say. Then, would you be able to give hints? Sometimes you can convey a lot with just one word. As you ponder the hybrid's words, you realize he has a point. Surely, one word couldn't hurt anything. But what word would be able to express the sheer danger of the attack? After a few seconds, one word comes to mind that you know for a fact will get a reaction out of the heroes. Hoping for the best, you meet Nezu's eyes and say it. Villains. Just as you predicted, the pro-heroes all react to your hint. Recovery girl gasps in surprise while Eraserhead quickly straightens out of his slouched position and puts his entire focus on you. Rather than look surprised like you expect, Nezu simply narrows his eyes. A villain attack on UAS campus. Do you know how they found out about the field trip and how they'll manage to get past our security? Your face brightens at the first question. I'm not sure how exactly they will get past security, but I can definitely tell you about how they know since that event has already happened. Eraserhead raises an eyebrow. What event? Turning your attention to him, you give him a nervous look. You're not gonna like this, but it has to do with the media breaking into the school. A villain destroyed the wall and let them in so he could sneak in while you were all distracted. As expected, the older man is not pleased with your answer. His eyes narrow as he scowls. Damn reporters. I knew there was more to that situation than what we thought. Didn't think a villain would cause all the trouble just to get info about a class field trip, though. What are they after? Thankfully, this question can be answered with just 2 words. All Might. While Eraserhead's scowl deepens, Nezu presses his paws together as he leans back in his chair. So, their goal is All Might. I can't say I'm too surprised. He is scheduled to be present during the field trip. See, that's where the real problem lies. At your words, the 2 males bring their full focus back on you. You sheepishly hold up 3 fingers, hoping the pro-heroes will be able to understand your hint. It only takes a few seconds before realization dawns their features. Immediately, a deep frown appears on Nezu's face while Eraserhead's expression turns furious. A scowling recovery girl is the one who voices what they're all thinking. That idiot. Of all the times to use up his blasted time limit, the next time I see him, he's getting a piece of my cane. I don't care if he hasn't done anything yet. While you can't blame her for reacting that way, you do feel a little bad for the symbol of peace. Hopefully, if he finds out, he won't be too upset that you ratted him out. You're drawn out of your worried thoughts when Nezu asks, does it run out before or during the field trip? Before. You answer before, quickly adding, technically. Eraserhead raises an eyebrow after calming down from his earlier rage. Technically. Before you can attempt to come up with an understandable response, Recovery Girl intervenes on your behalf. Knowing that idiot, he used it up saving people before the field trip, but once he finds out about the attack, he still goes to save the day despite being at his limit. Delighted that you don't have to come up with an explanation yourself, you give the older woman a thumbs up. Got it. She just sighs in exasperation as she takes a seat in the nearby chair. You return your attention to Nezu when you hear him clear his throat. Am I right to assume that the only teachers there from the beginning are 13 and Eraserhead? When you nod your head, Nezu frowns. How many villains participate in this attack? This makes you pause because you don't have an actual answer for that question. There are so many you never bothered to try counting them. Ooh, a lot. Thankfully, he doesn't appear upset about your vague response. Instead, the animal simply rubs his chin thoughtfully. Too many to count then. With only 2 faculty members and 20 inexperienced students to combat them, it's no wonder you were desperate to share this information with us. Your eyes widen as you give the principal a hopeful look. So, you believe me, even though I have no way to prove that it'll happen. Even without proof, I cannot simply dismiss your warning since it involves the safety of my students. Nedzu smiles. Besides, I am inclined to believe your words since you know about All Might's time limit, which not many people are aware of. It's proof that your quirk does provide accurate information. You start fiddling with your fingers. I actually know about more than just that secret. For some reason, a lot of my visions focused on All Might when I was a kid. I figured it was because he was the symbol of peace and lots of important things tended to happen around him. That's when you realize the magnitude of what you just said and begin to panically wave your hands. I haven't told anyone, though. I promise. I know it'd be bad if people were to find out about his secrets. Recovery girl reaches over to gently pat your arm. Calm down, dearie. No one here is accusing you of anything. As you take a deep breath to calm yourself, you see Nedzu pulling out his cell phone out of the corner of your eye. Before you can even begin to wonder who he's calling, you hear it begin to ring, signaling that he put it on speakerphone. Within seconds, there's a response from the other end of the line. Hello, UAS principal grins cheerfully. Hello, Detective Tsukachi. I hope I'm not calling you at a bad time. I was hoping you could lend me your assistance for a few minutes. I'd be happy to. Would this perhaps have to do with my quirk? You tilt your head curiously. His quirk, is it something that can be used through a cell phone? That's when it hits you. Although you can never tell when you'll get a vision, you always know right when it's about to happen. Your body stills as everything around you goes dark. You know that Nedzu was in the process of replying back to the man named Tsukachi, but you hear nothing. The scenery before your eyes changes. Instead of Nedzu and Eraserhead, you see All Might in his true form and Midoriya Izuku, a boy who has been in several of your visions, lying in 2 of the infirmary beds while Recovery Girl sits to the side. An unfamiliar man dressed in a trench coat walks into the room. Midoriya panics when he sees the man in the trench coat but is quickly reassured when All Might introduces the man as Tsukachi Naomasa, a detective in the police force who's also a very good friend of his. He's one of the few people aware of All Might's secret. Unfortunately, that's when the vision ends, so you are unable to get more information about the detective. You had hoped you would find out about his quirk to see why Nedzu would want to call the man. With a blink, everything returns to normal, and you see Nedzu studying you with a fascinated expression while Eraserhead warily watches you. That's when you realize Recovery Girl has a hand on your arm. When you turn toward her, she gives you a concerned look. Are you all right, dear? You had a glazed look in your eyes and weren't responding. Was that your quirk at work? Feeling bad for worrying her, you quickly nod and apologize. Yes, I'm sorry about that. I believe the name of the police detective triggered it. You give the principal a curious look. That is Tsukachi Naomasa, correct? The police detective who's friends with All Might. Nedzu beams approvingly. You are most certainly correct. I had called him because with his quirk he is able to tell when a person is lying or not. I figured this would be the quickest and most efficient way to prove your innocence. Happy that there's a way to prove you're not lying. You reach for the phone that's handed to you. Hello, detective. I'm sorry for the trouble, but I just wanted to say I know about some of All Might's secrets but have never told anyone about them. There's a brief pause before the detective chuckles. While I can't say I completely understand what's going on, I can tell you're telling the truth. Could you tell me your name, miss? Your brows furrow at the question. It's a perfectly reasonable question that you're happy to answer, but for some reason, it takes you a while before you can finally remember your own name. This is gonna sound really weird, but I think my name is Y.N. Eraserhead gives you an incredulous look. You think, you don't know your own name. You bite your lip. I can't remember the last time someone said my name, but I recall writing down that name several times on a piece of paper. I think I was trying to make sure I didn't forget it. For a while, no one speaks, obviously unsure as to how to respond to such a strange statement. Both Nedzu and Eraserhead appear to be studying you while Recovery Girl is frowning. Finally, it's Tsukachi who breaks the silence by awkwardly clearing his throat. Well, I can say for a fact that Y.N. hasn't lied once since she started speaking with me. Was there another question you wanted me to verify for you, Nedzu-san? It's not Nedzu who replies but Eraserhead, whose eyes meet yours. Is everything you've told us so far the truth? You firmly hold his gaze as you push all the sincerity you can muster into your voice. Yes, before you even realize it, you find yourself holding your breath as you await Tsukachi's verdict. When he says that you're telling the truth a few seconds later, you release a huge sigh of relief. Nedzu reaches for his cell phone, which you quickly hand over. Thank you for your help, Detective. I know you must have a lot of questions. I promise to call you later with more information once everything is settled here. With that, goodbyes are exchanged, and the call ends, causing silence to envelop the room. Thankfully, it's not what you would call an awkward silence, but you still can't help but fidget due to your nerves since you have no idea what this silence means for you. Eventually, the silence is broken when Nezu loudly claps his paws together, which makes you jump in surprise. Now that that's taken care of, I have a proposal for you, Y and San. Blinking, you tilt your head curiously. A proposal? For me. Eraserhead gives the principal a wary look. But before the underground hero can say anything, Nezu cheerfully asks, how would you like to work at UA as Eraserhead's teaching assistant? The reactions are simultaneous. Huh, what? Oh my. All you can do is gape at the hybrid. What? What did he just say? For several seconds, you just open and close your mouth, unable to come up with a verbal response due to your shock. This apparently amuses Nezu since he begins to chuckle. I think you'd make an interesting addition to our staff, and considering your abilities, you'd be a great asset. Eraserhead looks at him in disbelief. She's not a hero. Hell, she's not even a teacher. We don't even know how old she is. Recovery Girl appears more amused than anything by this sudden turn of events. It's hard to tell for sure what her age may be, considering she has a young face, but I would wager she's either almost done with high school or has just recently finished it. That's the impression I got when I was examining her earlier. She tilts her head. Can you remember your age, dear? You rack your brain for an answer but are unable to find one. After several seconds pass with no luck, you hang your head in defeat. I can't. I'm pretty sure I was homeschooled since I can't remember going to an actual school. Still, I'm pretty sure that I'm at least 18 years old. After all, I don't have any recent memories of doing school work, so that must mean I've already finished it all, right? There's only one way to find out. Nezu jumps out of his seat and heads for the door. A test is in order. We'll see where you are education-wise. And if my theory of you being a young adult proves true, then we won't have to worry about employing you. Eraserhead, if you'd be so kind, please escort Y and Sen to your classroom. Once I've finished preparing the test, I'll meet you there. While Recovery Girl just shakes her head at the principal's actions, Eraserhead scowls in annoyance. That still doesn't change the fact that she's unqualified for the position. His response goes unheard since Nezu has already left the room. Cursing under his breath, the older man slowly rises to his feet and fixes his steely gaze on you. You all right to walk? Nodding rapidly, you remove the cover and slide your feet to the side. When you move to stand, you take in the t-shirt, sweatpants, and sneakers you're wearing with relief. This is the last thing I remember wearing. It would have been really freaky if I was wearing clothes I don't remember putting on. As Eraserhead makes his way toward the door, you give Recovery Girl a quick bow. Thank you for looking after me. I'm sorry for the trouble. She gives you a warm smile. I'm glad you're all right. Now, don't let those two give you too hard a time. All right. If you need anything, just let me know. You return the smile before quickly following after Eraserhead, who doesn't seem interested in waiting on you. Because of his longer legs, you have to walk at a brisk pace in order to keep up with him. Since he doesn't seem interested in talking to you, you let your gaze roam to observe your surroundings, and your eyes soon widen with awe. You've never walked through such a large hallway before. Maybe it's because some people end up growing to be really big because of their quirks. You muse. I know All Might is pretty large, so it makes sense to have doorways that are really tall and wide. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to enter his own classroom. The mental image of All Might trying and failing to enter a classroom because the doorway is too small makes you want to laugh, but you miraculously manage to rein in your mirth. After all, the last thing you want is to annoy Eraserhead further by suddenly laughing out loud for no apparent reason. In hopes of keeping your laughter contained, you quickly try to distract yourself by looking out the nearby window. When you do that, you see how low the sun is, which catches you by surprise. Considering there are no students in sight, it's obviously after school hours, but what time did you exactly get here? How long were you unconscious? For several minutes, you run through your most recent memories, hoping to find some hint as to what brought you to UA. Unfortunately, nothing comes to mind. You remember seeing on the news about the reporters getting onto the school's grounds. That led you to wanting to visit the school to warn them about the USJ attack. But you can't actually remember leaving to come here. What in the world is going on? Hey, you jolt in surprise, not expecting Eraserhead to suddenly start speaking to you. Why yes, Eraserhead gives you a cursory glance before looking back down the hallway. If I were to erase your quirk to stop the drawback, would you be able to tell me everything about the USJ attack? With a frown, you shake your head. Unfortunately, no. When you used your quirk earlier, it erased the drawback, but my mind also went completely blank. I couldn't remember what vision I was talking about. When his gaze returns to you, you give him a frustrated look. It's like I knew I had visions of important events, but I couldn't remember what exactly I saw. I remembered what my quirk was and knew why I was in the position that led you to using yours on me, but I couldn't remember what I was trying to tell you. He sighs as he shoves his hands into his pockets. Can't say I'm too surprised. There are usually other side effects that people deal with besides temporarily losing their quirk when I use mine on them. After he says that, Eraserhead goes quiet, making you wonder if you should do the same or if you should try to say something else. In the end, someone else decides to solve that problem for you. Hey, Eraser, there you are. I was wondering when you'd be done. Is that the little listener you found earlier? A taller man with long, spiky blonde hair, wearing a black jacket with an upturned collar and matching pants, walks out of a room further down the hall. Despite the distance, you can hear him very clearly. Eraserhead scowls. Shut up. Your voice is too loud, Mike. As you approach the blonde, you take in his sunglasses, headphones, and what appears to be a speaker around his neck. That's when you realize this must be the hero with his own radio show, Present Mike. Just as you come to that realization, the familiar feeling of an oncoming vision washes over you. In a flash, you're brought back to the scene of the USJ attack. Rather than see a moment involving Class 1 or the teachers in charge of overseeing them during the rescue training exercise like you normally do in your visions of the USJ attack, you witness the moment when the other UA teachers arrive to deal with the villains, with Present Mike being one of the teachers at the front of the pack. Amazed, you watch as he uses his voice quirk to take out the majority of the villains with one loud shout. Despite knowing it's just a vision, your hands unconsciously rise to clasp over your ears in an effort to block out the sound. It's a futile effort since it's impossible to turn your eyes or ears away from your visions once they begin. And just like that, it ends, and you find yourself back in the UA hallway with a concerned Present Mike and a frowning Eraserhead. When you realize your hands are still covering your ears, you immediately lower them and avert your eyes in embarrassment. Sorry, that probably looked weird. Weird is an understatement. You probably looked insane, suddenly going still like that and covering your ears. And right when you're meeting the vocal hero for the first time, your timing is the worst. You hope you didn't offend Present Mike. Much to your surprise, it's Eraserhead who speaks first. Don't worry about it. He's used to people covering their ears when he starts talking. That's normal. The other hero squawks in outrage. So not true. Everyone loves listening to me talk. You're just jealous you don't have a radio-worthy voice like mine. Eraserhead just rolls his eyes. Tell that to all the poor animals that flee the surrounding area whenever you open your mouth. Even though you know you shouldn't, you find yourself giggling at his comment. You hadn't expected the underground hero to banter like this with the other teacher, but you're enjoying witnessing the exchange of exuberant and dry remarks. You're surprised when Present Mike aims a large grin your way. What do you know? Looks like you know how to put a smile on a girl's face after all, Eraser, and here I thought I was gonna have to do all the work myself. He strikes a pose as he continues. I'm sure you already know who I am, but I'll introduce myself anyway since it's only polite. The name's Present Mike, voice hero loved by all. What's your name, listener? Another laugh escapes you when he aims finger guns your way. My name's YN. It's nice to meet you. Then, upon remembering your earlier actions, you give him an apologetic look. I'm sorry about earlier. I wasn't trying to block you out. It's just your voice in the vision I saw was really loud. I covered my ears without thinking. Present Mike tilts his head curiously. Vision? With a sigh, Eraserhead explains. Her quirk allows her to see visions of the future. She can't control it, so it happens at random. For whatever reason, seeing you triggered one. He then raises a brow at you. You said his voice was really loud. Did you watch him use his quirk on someone? Nodding, you decide to give him a short answer just in case. USJ. The vocal hero looks like he's about to probe further before the other man cuts him off. I'll explain later. It's easier for me to do it than her since she's not allowed to go into details about certain visions she has. Upon seeing Present Mike's pout, you say the first thing that comes to mind to try to cheer him up. Your quirk is really amazing. It's so powerful. It was so cool to watch. Thankfully, your words have the desired effect since the blonde's expression instantly brightens in response to your compliment. Present Mike grins broadly as he proudly puffs up his chest. See, I told you, Eraser. My quirk is super popular. I am coolness personified. Eraserhead gives him a dry look. I think you mean stupidity. His friend gasps dramatically, putting a hand on his chest. You wound me, Eraser. You're a horrible friend. Tell him he's horrible, YN-chan. At that, both men turn toward you to see how you'll react. Put on the spot, you panic over what to say. Even though they're obviously joking, you don't want to say something that might upset either of them. In the end, you decide to be honest. You avert your gaze to the side as you twiddle your fingers. Well, I admit at first I thought he was pretty scary and kinda mean, but the more I saw Eraserhead in my visions, the more I saw what he's really like as a teacher. He's stern but kind. I could tell that he cares a whole lot about his students, which I thought was really admirable. When you finally bring your gaze back to the two men, you see Eraserhead sporting a surprised expression while his friend is grinning, looking like he's about to laugh at any moment. Much to your surprise, The underground hero abruptly turns away and starts walking further down the hall. We've wasted enough time. The principal is probably already waiting on us by now. Confused by his sudden departure, you switch your gaze from Eraserhead to present Mike, who leans over with his large grin still firmly in place. Surprisingly enough, he manages to whisper his next words. Looks like you managed to embarrass him. It's not often someone compliments him directly to his face, so he was caught off guard. Nice work. When he gives you a thumbs up, your shoulders slump with relief. You're glad you didn't upset Eraserhead. Still, you hadn't expected him to get embarrassed over a simple compliment. Just goes to show, you can't judge a book by its cover. A hand on your shoulder makes you jump in surprise. Looking up at present Mike, you see him pull down his shades so he can wink at you. I don't know what's going on, but I have a feeling things are about to get really interesting with you around. Why? En-chan. Anyone who can appreciate Eraser like that is a good person in my book, so I hope we'll get a chance to hang out again in the future. Once you get over your surprise, a pleasant warmth envelops your chest. You don't know why, but there's just something about present Mike's easy acceptance of you that makes you incredibly happy. That's why you can't stop yourself from beaming. I'd like that. Hurry up. At the sound of Eraserhead's annoyed voice, you quickly follow after him, giving present Mike a wave as you leave. He gives you an enthusiastic wave in return. Good luck. Don't let Eraser get you down too much. Remember, he's a real softie deep down. Despite your best efforts, you can't stop yourself from giggling at his words. It doesn't help your case when you see Eraserhead scowling at his friend in irritation. Thankfully, your destination is close by, so the two of you reach the Class 1A classroom not long after parting ways with present Mike. When you enter the room after the teacher, you're surprised to see Nedzu standing on the desk. Looks like Eraserhead was right about the animal beating you here. The principal smiles at your arrival and gestures toward one of the desks in the front row. Once you take a seat, you bring your gaze to study the papers before you. This is the test. Nedzu nods his head. That's right. I've included questions that broach all the subjects required by high school students during their 3 years of education. There are 50 questions in all. I was tempted to make it longer, but since this is short notice, I had a feeling this would be more well received. He claps his paws together as he beams. Besides, if you do as well as I hope, then I should have plenty of opportunities in the future to test your knowledge more. Eraserhead simply sighs before pulling out a bright yellow sleeping bag from beneath the desk. Since this is your test, I'll be on standby while you watch her. With that, the underground hero gets into the sleeping bag and zips himself up, making him look like a sleep-deprived caterpillar. In a blink, he's on the floor fast asleep. For several seconds, you simply stare before finally turning your attention to the principal, who continues to smile cheerfully. You can start the test whenever you're ready. Realizing that's all you can do at this point, you grab the pencil left on the desk for you and begin working through the problems. You quickly realize that Nedzu really wasn't kidding about covering all the subjects. What's worse is only a few are actually multiple choice. Oh joy. Strangely enough, this type of test actually feels familiar to you. You're pretty sure you've taken a test like this involving all the subjects you've learned in the past. But it wasn't at a school. You're positive about that. Just what kind of weird homeschooling did you go through growing up? You have no idea how much time passes while you work on solving the problems. But you are very much relieved when you finally answer the last one. Thankfully, despite the questionability of your education, you found yourself able to answer all of the questions presented to you. You don't think you got them all completely right, though, since some took more of your time than others. However, you do feel pretty good about your results. At the very least, you seriously doubt that you failed. Rising from your seat, you gather your papers together and move toward the desk to hand Nedzu your test. Faster than you can blink, he has a red pen in hand and starts going through all the questions. Less than 5 minutes later, the principal sets the red pen down and turns the front page to face you. A delighted smile matching Nedzu's forms on your face when you see the A in bright red ink. I got an A. So, that's proof I did get a high school education despite not going to an actual school, right? He nods his head as he sets the test on the desk for Eraserhead, who woke up while you weren't looking, to examine. That's correct. While it wasn't a perfect score, you only made a few mistakes here and there, mostly with the history and science-related questions. What's really impressive are your math and English scores. Are those perhaps your favorite subjects? You rub your neck sheepishly. I've always liked math, so it comes easy to me, even though I was never a fan of geometry. I was lucky there weren't too many of those kind of questions in there. While I wouldn't say English is my favorite per se, I do like it. Eraserhead sets down the test and pulls himself out of the sleeping bag. I'll admit the score is good, but that doesn't make her qualified to be a teacher, even if it's just as a ta. Nedzu waves a paw at him. If it'll make you feel better, you can see this more as an internship where she's gaining experience on how to become a teacher. Considering the circumstances, I think this is the best possible option for her. If she continues to have visions about our students, then it only makes sense that she stays here at UA. Would you really want to risk her falling into the villain's hands? The other teacher sighs as he leans against the desk. We know next to nothing about her. We don't know where she came from, and neither does she. I don't like the idea of having someone like that around my students, even though she wasn't lying earlier. That doesn't mean we can trust her completely. His harsh words make you flinch. Still, you can't blame him for being honest. His worries are perfectly reasonable. They have no way of proving that you won't end up being a danger to the students. Rather than dispute those claims, Nezu simply turns to you with a curious smile. What would you like to do? Why, En-san? I haven't asked about your thoughts on the matter. You give him a surprised look. Of all the possible reactions, you weren't expecting him to go that route. However, it's true you haven't actually spoken on your own behalf when it comes to your own future. You figured you wouldn't get much say in the matter since you were technically trespassing on UA property and obviously suspicious. Not wanting to waste this opportunity, you take a deep breath and calm your thoughts. Then, after a few seconds, you respond, everything Eraserhead said is true. I have no training or education for being a teacher, especially not at a school like this. Considering my shady background, it's only normal for you to be suspicious of me. Still, you place one hand against your chest while your free hand clenches tightly into a fist. I don't care what you do with me. If you kick me off campus and send me away, that's fine. All I wanted out of this was for you to hear my message and heed my warning. All I care about is making sure those kids are protected. Memories of the visions you had about the USJ attack fly to the forefront of your mind unbidden. You see several terrified young faces as they fight for their lives. There's also a memory of a certain teacher sprawled on the ground bloody and broken that makes your eyes water despite your best efforts. After taking a quick moment to collect yourself, you continue, I don't want that future to happen. I know I can't always stop bad things from happening to good people. However, I can't just sit by and do nothing if there's a chance I can somehow make things turn out better for everyone involved. Even if there's just a small chance something could change, I have to try. Eraserhead holds your gaze for several seconds after you go quiet. You have no idea what he's thinking because his face is so hard to read. Then, he sighs, looking like he's about to say something he knows he'll eventually regret. Fine, I'll let you be my ta. I won't give you any actual teaching duties, but doing things like helping me create assignments and grade papers should be fine. Your eyes grow large with shock at his words. Then, after you get over your surprise, a large grin forms on your face as you clap your hands together excitedly. That's fine. I'll do whatever you need me to. Thank you so much, Eraserhead-san. Aizawa. His response makes you pause in confusion. Huh, he rolls his eyes. My name is Aizawa Shouta, although you probably already know that because of your visions. I'd rather you call me by that than my hero name. Your grin returns at full force. Understood. Thank you, Aizawa-san. Nezu chuckles as he jumps from the desk to the floor with your test in hand. I'm glad that's all sorted out now. Since you agreed to watch over her, I'm sure you're fine with looking after her for the rest of the day, right, Aizawa-kun? Aizawa stares at the animal incredulously. What? You can't be serious. Shouldn't you ask someone like Midnight for this? The principal shakes his head. I'm afraid she's already gone for the day. Besides, since En-san will be your ta, that means she's your responsibility now. It only makes sense that you also handle her living situation, at least until we can come up with something else for her. He rubs his chin thoughtfully. I have considered making living quarters on campus in the past. Perhaps it's finally time that I follow through with that idea. Much to your shock, another vision hits you at that moment, catching you off guard. You don't think you've ever had so many visions in one day before, compared to your previous visions. This new one is much shorter. For a few seconds, you see Aizawa standing before what appears to be a large dormitory for the Class 1 students who appear to be moving in. When the vision ends, Nezu is watching you with intrigued eyes while the other teacher looks like all he wants to do is go back to sleep. Another vision, why, En-san? You nod at the hybrid's question before explaining what you saw. By the looks of it, the Class 1 students were moving into a dormitory, and Aizawa-san was telling them the rules of living there. Nezu's eyes get a certain gleam that makes you somewhat nervous. Tell me, how far in the future can you see? Why, En-san? Have you ever seen something happen years in advance? Or is the time frame shorter than that? For a few seconds, you ponder his words, mentally going over all the visions you've had, which you actually remember. Obviously, your amnesia doesn't affect your memories related to your visions. I don't think I've ever seen anything happen more than a year in advance. I can usually tell if a vision will happen in a matter of days, weeks, or months. That vision will happen in less than half a year for sure. Aizawa's eyes narrow. That must mean something big happens between now and the end of the summer break. Nezu nods in agreement. It would seem we are in for quite the eventful school year. should consider going ahead with the building of the dormitories for our students. It might benefit us in the long run to have them already ready just in case. The principal starts walking toward the door. Just another thing I'll need to consider. I'm heading back to my office now to make the necessary preparations for our newest staff member. I'll have everything ready for you by tomorrow. Why, Ensan, so you're more than welcome to join Aizawa-kun's class tomorrow. Before he leaves, you call out to the hybrid. Nedzu-san, what do you plan on doing about the field trip? He pauses in the doorway before smiling at you from over his shoulder. No need to worry. While it was scheduled for tomorrow, I have no intention to send our students to the USJ when there's a risk of them being put in danger. We'll simply have to postpone it to a later time after we investigate the matter. With that, Nedzu makes his exit, leaving you alone with Aizawa. You release a sigh of relief. Somehow, everything managed to work out in the end. They're really taking your warning seriously. You're so glad. That's when you remember that Nedzu left Aizawa in charge of your housing arrangements for the night. When you sneak a glance at the man, you see him pinching the bridge of his nose. It's obvious that he's not thrilled about this situation. You can't help but feel guilty about putting the underground hero through all this trouble. I could always stay at a nearby hotel for the night. I promise I won't go anywhere during the night. You can even ask the staff to keep a lookout for me. As long as they have proper surveillance equipment, it would be impossible for me to sneak out unnoticed. Aizawa pulls his hand away from his face and raises an eyebrow at you. Do you even have money for that? Your cheeks heat up with a blush when you realize, much to your horror, that you don't. Your pockets are empty. You have nothing except for the clothes on your back. How embarrassing. Seeing your reaction makes him sigh deeply. Figured as much. We didn't find a wallet or any kind of ID on you earlier when you were found unconscious. You hang your head in shame. I'm sorry. Even though your goal was to come here to help, it seems like all you're doing is causing trouble. No ID, no money, no memories. All you have is a crazy quirk that you can't even control. You really are more trouble than you're worth. Stop that. A flick to your forehead makes you jolt in surprise. When you lift your gaze upwards, you see Aizawa giving you an exasperated look. There's no point in dwelling on what you can't control. We'll figure everything out eventually. For now, let's get out of here. This whole situation has left me exhausted. And that's how you find yourself, leaving UAS campus with the underground hero, Eraserhead. This is definitely not how you expected your day to go when you woke up this morning. Even though it seems he's accepted his role of looking after you, you can't help but still feel nervous about this situation. He's probably taking you to his home, right? Wouldn't an underground hero like him want to keep that a secret? Surely, bringing a stranger to the one place where he should feel safe is unnerving for the man. Aizawa-san, when he makes a noise to show he's listening, you continue, are you sure this is really okay? Sharing your home with someone like me. That's probably the last thing you want to do, right? I really appreciate you helping me, but I feel bad for inconveniencing you like this. He slides his gaze towards you momentarily before moving it back to watch the crowd. Considering how late it is now, there aren't that many people still up and about, but there's enough to have the hero on alert. You wonder if he's always like this, so vigilant even off duty. Well, I guess a hero is always on the job. If a problem occurs, of course they'll jump in since there's no way of knowing when another hero might show up. You're drawn out of your thoughts when you hear Aizawa's tired drawl. It's not like we have any other options since we don't fully know your circumstances. There's no way of knowing what could happen if you're left alone. Someone needs to keep an eye on you. Besides, it's just an apartment. I can always move later if necessary. And it's not like you'll have the opportunity to tell anyone anyway since you're gonna be stuck with me most of the time while you're at UA. As you let his words sink in, you realize that he's right. No doubt they'll want to keep you under surveillance for a while, which is perfectly understandable. By the looks of things, Nedzu has made Aizawa your official guardian of sorts. You'll probably be spending a lot of time with the man during your stay at UA. On one hand, you're looking forward to getting to know Aizawa. You were serious when you said you found him admirable. He really is an incredible teacher. However, that doesn't change the fact that he's intimidating, and that despite agreeing to look after you, he still finds you suspicious. You clench your hands into tight fists. I'll just have to prove myself to him. It'll take time, but I'm patient. I'll show him that I have no ulterior motives. Despite my suspicious background, I'm not a bad person. Despite your best efforts, you cannot stop thinking about the mysterious blanks in your memory and how you can't clearly remember your life before waking up at UA. What exactly were you doing before all this happened? You bite your lip. I'm not a bad person. Right. Here. With a jolt, you're pulled away from your depressing thoughts by Aizawa, who hands you a pass. You eye it curiously. Considering the two of you have just arrived at the train station, you assume you need this pass to board. Noticing your intrigued expression, Aizawa raises an eyebrow at you. Have you never ridden on a train before? You pause to consider his question before slowly shaking your head. No, I don't remember ever riding in one. I don't remember leaving home much. If I did, it was just for errands like getting groceries, and there was a marketplace down the road so I never had to travel far. The older man turns away to head further into the station, so you miss the way his eyes narrow at your words. Do remember where you live? As the two of you wait for the train, you consider his question and frown when you realize you don't have an answer. I don't know. I remember what everything on the street looked like and what kind of stores there were, but I can't actually remember what district or city I was in. One of your hands clutches the fabric of your sweatpants. What is wrong with me? Why can't I remember something as simple as the place where I lived? I'm pretty sure I lived in the same place my whole life, but I can't remember where that even is. What the hell? You're pulled away from your thoughts by the sound of the incoming train. When the doors slide open, you and Aizawa board and take a seat. Thankfully, the train isn't too crowded since you both missed the end of the day rush. Aizawa leans back into the seat with a sigh before giving you a side glance. So, you don't remember where you lived. What about who you lived with? Do you remember anything about your family? For some reason, your chest clenches painfully at his question. You bring your eyes to your lap as you clasp your hands tightly together. I don't think I had one. I don't remember having any parents or siblings. Unlike the other memories you asked about, I feel like I have none in this case because there were never any to begin with. I don't know how to explain how I know that, though. You rub your temple to fend off an oncoming headache. But I feel like I wasn't completely alone. There was someone in that house besides me, but I don't think they were someone I considered family. There had to be someone else besides me. There's no way I was all alone up until this point. Someone made sure I had food to eat and clothes to wear. Someone made sure I got an education. But, for whatever reason, when I try to think of them, I get a cold feeling in my chest, and my head starts to hurt. Why is that? Hey, startled, you jump in your seat before jerking your gaze to the man beside you. Once he has your attention, Aizawa continues, if you can't remember, don't force yourself. It's possible you had a run-in with someone who has a quirk that allows them to erase memories. For now, we'll leave this to the principal since he's obviously interested in your situation. Just be sure to tell us whatever you can remember that you think is important. You nod your head as you stare at him with wide eyes. You had expected him to get annoyed by your unhelpful answers. But he's not. He's not even scowling at you. His expression is calm as he assesses you before finally averting his eyes to face the seats across from you. The rest of the train ride is quiet, neither of you too interested in talking. At the third stop, Aizawa rises from his seat, and you quickly move to follow him. From there, the two of you leave the station and start walking. You have no way of keeping track of time, but it doesn't feel like you've walked for very long when you arrive at an apartment complex. It looks rather ordinary. Nothing about the building stands out which actually make a lot of sense. This is probably the perfect place for an underground hero to live. After taking an elevator to the third floor, Aizawa comes to a stop at the third door on the left. He unlocks the door and motions for you to enter first. Nervous, you cross over the threshold and instantly notice the shoe rack at the door. Following the older man's example, you take off your shoes and walk further inside, wearing just your socks since there aren't any slippers at the door. Maybe he doesn't care about that sort of thing in his own home. The first thing you think when you study the apartment is how small it is. It's definitely suited for just one person. You see the living room when you first walk in and then notice what appears to be the kitchen to the left when you walk further inside. There's one hallway with what appears to be 3 doors. If you were to guess, one was probably the hallway closet while the other 2 lead to his bedroom and bathroom. In the back of your mind, you wonder where you're even supposed to sleep. The couch. You want to ask but feel too nervous to do so at the moment. The sound of meowing grabs your attention, and you watch amazed as 2 cats pop out from behind the couch. One cat is pure white and extremely fluffy with bright blue eyes while the short-haired cat, which has lovely amber eyes, is completely black except for its paws and the tip of its tail which are white. Both cats immediately head for Aizawa and start wrapping around his ankles, meowing loudly. He sighs in response. I know you're hungry. Hold on a minute. With that, the pro hero slips away into the kitchen with the animals hot on his tail. You find the corners of your mouth twitching upwards before you even realize it. Looks like the super stern teacher is a big softie when it comes to cats. That's when your stomach starts to growl. Thankfully, Aizawa is busy with the cats, so it's unlikely he heard it. Still, you should ask him about food since you don't really know when's the last time you ate. You remember eating lunch, but you don't even know what time it is now since there aren't any clocks in sight. When he leaves the kitchen, you decide to ask him. I feel bad for asking since you've already done so much to help me, but I was wondering what to do for dinner. I know how to cook, but I didn't know if it was okay to use your food. Aizawa rolls his eyes. I'm not gonna starve you. I'm not much of a cook myself, but if you see something in there that you want to eat, help yourself. Just as you're about to ask him what he's going to eat, the older man pulls out what looks like a jelly pack and starts eating it as he heads for the couch. All you can do is stare. Surely, that's not all he's eating for dinner. With a shake of your head, you start familiarizing yourself with the kitchen. In the corner, you see the two cats eating but decide to leave them alone for now. You've always liked cats. You wonder if Aizawa will let you pet them if you ask for permission. A few minutes pass before you finish searching the refrigerator and cabinets. It's after you do so that you come to a horrifying conclusion. There's nothing but junk food in here. How the hell is this man still alive? No one should be able to live off this stuff and look as healthy as he does. Sure, he looks like he hasn't slept in days. But besides that, he looks fine. How is that possible? You bring your hands together in front of your face and take a deep breath. Once you're calm, you make a decision. I know it's not my place to say anything, but I gotta do something. He can't just have jelly for dinner. Determined, you pull out the bread along with the other sandwich ingredients. You don't know what kind he likes, but you don't think you can go wrong with a classic ham and cheese. You make 2 with mayonnaise and 2 with mustard. That way he can have a choice of condiment. You're fine with either, so it doesn't matter to you. Unfortunately, considering the circumstances, you can't make a healthier meal, but a sandwich is definitely a lot better than what he's currently eating. Once you finish, you grab 2 sodas from the fridge and carry them along with the plate of sandwiches to the couch. Since there's no dining area, you figure the man doesn't care about eating in the living room. When you approach the couch, you see Aizawa stretched out fast asleep with the 2 cats on top of him. You're reluctant to wake him since he obviously doesn't sleep enough, so you move to sit on the floor after setting the food and drinks on the coffee table. The TV is currently showing the news, but the volume is so low you can just barely hear it. Not wanting to break the peaceful silence of the apartment, you reach for a sandwich and start eating as you pass the time watching TV. Just as you're about to start on your second sandwich, Aizawa begins to stir. You turn your head just in time to see his eyes open. For several seconds, he just stares at you, so you decide to break the awkward silence by pointing at the plate of food. I made you something to eat. Jelly isn't a very filling meal after all. You then turn back to the TV and continue munching on your meal, acting as if this situation isn't as crazy as it really is. There's some shifting behind you before you hear him sigh. You didn't have to make me anything. I don't need to eat a lot. That makes you roll your eyes. You wave a dismissive hand at him, not bothering to look away from the TV. Nonsense. You're a grown man. You need to eat more than just a jelly pack. Besides, it's not like I made you a feast. Considering you are letting me stay in your home free of charge, this is the least I can do. He quietly grumbles in response for a few seconds before finally reaching for one of the sandwiches. You do your best to fight off the smug grin that tugs at your lips. You don't want to risk annoying him further after all. Once you're both done eating, you move to stand and gather the plates and trash to take to the kitchen. After you finish cleaning up and throwing the trash away, you return to the living room and are surprised to see Aizawa sitting up on the couch instead of reclining. You notice that the coffee table now has some papers and folders on top of it. Instead of sleeping on top of their owner, the cats are now stretched out on the top of the couch, relaxing. Since there's a spot now available to sit, you decide to take a seat beside the teacher. Are you lesson planning? He nods his head as he runs a hand through his hair. Since we won't be doing the field trip tomorrow, I'll need to come up with a different lesson instead. Although, the likelihood of being able to get anything done during homeroom is next to 0 since they'll be more focused on you. You scratch your head. Maybe I should introduce myself near the end of homeroom then. I don't want to be a distraction. Aizawa shakes his head. No, it's better to go ahead and get all their questions handled ahead of time. Plus, it does save me from having to actually come up with something else to do. Nervous, you fiddle with your hands. Are you going to tell the students about my vision? Or do you hope we can keep them in the dark about what's to come? How sure are you that it will happen? Your eyes meet his without hesitation. 100%. My visions always come true. It's true I've never tried to stop them, but there are some events that cannot be stopped. It's easy to prevent simple things like someone tripping from happening. But an attack of this large a scale, even if you change the date of the field trip, I think the attack will still happen. I don't know how, but it will. You clench your hands tightly together. I'd like to say I came here to stop the attack from happening, period. But I don't know if that's possible. My hope was that more teachers would be involved and that I could convince All Might not to use up the majority of his time limit prior to the field trip. Aizawa rests his elbows on his knees and clasps his hands together as he slouches forward. You didn't think you could stop the damage. You just wanted to mitigate it. Even though he's not looking at you, you find yourself nodding before realizing you should verbally respond as well. Yeah, even though the students came out relatively unharmed, it was still a traumatic experience that no first-year high school student should ever have to deal with, especially not so early in the school year. He gives you a side glance. So, there weren't any serious injuries on the students? Wincing, you give him a helpless shrug and hope he'll understand your short answer. Midoriya. Unsurprisingly, Aizawa catches on very quickly. He shakes his head with a groan. Of course, but that quirk of his, I'd be surprised if he didn't have any injuries on him. You find yourself frowning at his words. He's doing his best. It's not like he's had his quirk very long. You saw when he registered it, didn't you? The older man raises an eyebrow. So, you even know that much about him? Do you have this much knowledge about all my students or just Midoriya? Before you can reply, his white cat decides to plop down on your lap and make itself comfortable. For several seconds, you just stare at it before turning your gaze to its owner. Aizawa snorts before leaning back against the couch. If you want to pet her you can, or if you want her to move, just pick her up. She won't bite. Hesitantly, you reach toward the fluffy creature and lay a hand on her back. When she makes no move to retaliate, you begin petting her, marveling at how soft she feels. Ooh, she's so soft. It's like petting a cloud. What's her name? Shiro. The other cat is Kuro. He takes longer to warm up to people, but he won't do anything to you either. You raise an eyebrow at the man. You named your cats after their fur colors. Really? He shrugs his shoulders. Naming is not my thing. At least, I didn't name them cat number 1 and cat number 2. His words make you snort before you can stop yourself. Well, if those were their other options, I guess Shiro and Kuro lucked out in the end. For a while, you just sit there petting Shiro while Kuro stays on the other end of the couch with Aizawa. Eventually, the silence that filled the air gets broken when Aizawa brings his question from before back up. So, what do you know about Midoriya? You find yourself wincing. More than I should. I had several visions about him when I was growing up. At first, I had no idea why, but eventually, I came up with a theory. Aizawa gives you a dry look. But you don't plan on telling me, right? Guilty, you avert your gaze away from his. I'd like to, but first, I need to ask for permission. I can't go around revealing his secrets when it's not my place to say. Thankfully, the underground hero doesn't seem angry since he only sighs in response. Figured as much. Well, at least, you know better than to go around telling just anybody about other people's business. As long as the secret doesn't put him in danger, it's fine if I don't know for now. If only you knew. You have to fight the urge to grimace at his response. There's no telling how he'd react if he found out about All Might giving his quirk to Midoriya with next to no training before the entrance exam. All Might would definitely be in hot water if Aizawa knew. Still, I think Aizawa-san has a right to know. He is Midoriya's homeroom teacher. You think to yourself, I can understand keeping this a secret from the majority of the staff. But Aizawa-san is the teacher that deals with Midoriya the most. He might even could help the kid out if he understood the circumstances. Maybe I could convince All Might to let Aizawa-san in on the secret. I think if anyone could keep a secret it would be Aizawa-san. I don't like that look on your face. When you look to see Aizawa's narrowed eyes aimed your way, you immediately look away. I'll get permission, and then, I'll tell you. I think it'd be better if you knew anyway. His gaze remains on you for a while before he finally relents and turns his attention to Kuro, who's now sprawled across his lap. Fine, I'll wait. I really hope it's not as bad as you're making me think it is. Before you can come up with a way to reassure him, Aizawa reaches for a folder and hands it over to you. At your confused look, he explains, the students' profiles. If you're gonna be my ta, you need to at least know my students' names and quirks. These are pretty generic, so it's not like there's any sensitive information in them. Once you have the folder in hand, the teacher goes back to looking over his papers. Meanwhile, you open the file and start reading the profiles while you absently pet Shiro with your free hand. You recognize the faces in every photo and remember most of their names since they've all appeared in your visions at least once. You're not familiar with all their quirks, however, so looking at these profiles is definitely beneficial. Even though there's 20 of them, it doesn't take you a long time to memorize everything since you were mainly reading about their quirks. Once you finish, you close the file and turn to look at Aizawa, who's now leaning back into the couch with his eyes closed. If you had to guess, you think he's just resting his eyes rather than sleeping. Still, it takes you a few minutes to gather enough courage to speak up. Aizawa-san, what? His eyes remain closed, but his head is now leaning more in your direction. Kuro reaches up to bop his owner on the cheek with his paw, making you smile. I was wondering where I was supposed to sleep. It's a one-bedroom apartment, right? Do I just take the couch? Aizawa opens his eyes and gently pushes the cat's paw away from his face. Sitting up, he stretches his arms above his head with a yawn. You can have the bed. I'll sleep on the couch. Your eyes grow large. What? No way. I can't do that. I can't take your bed. I'll sleep on the couch. He cracks his neck before raising an eyebrow at you. Just take the bed. Why? It doesn't matter to me where I sleep. I can sleep anywhere. Literally. And if you want to take a shower, you can borrow some of my clothes to sleep in while you use the washer for the clothes you have on. Despite your best efforts, you find yourself blushing in embarrassment. Are you sure? Aizawa rolls his eyes. I wouldn't have offered if I wasn't. Now, go ahead and get ready for bed. The sooner you go to sleep, the sooner I can. Reluctantly, you nod your head and then gently pick up Shiro to set her by Kuro, who's still commandeering his owner's lap. You rise to stand and turn to leave when you suddenly stop. Before he can question you, you quickly turn toward Aizawa and bow your head. Thank you for everything. I know I haven't done anything to deserve it, but I'm grateful for your kindness. I promise I'll work hard and become the best Ta you've ever seen. Rather than check to see his reaction, You dash toward the hallway, eager to get out of sight as soon as possible. Before you're out of earshot, however, Aizawa calls out to you, making you pause. Hope you like grading papers, because I plan on taking full advantage of this situation. When you turn to look at him, you see a manic grin on his face. While you originally thought it was scary when you first saw the grin in your visions, you don't feel nervous at all, seeing it in person for the first time. Instead, you find yourself grinning widely in return. He'll be the envy of all the other UA teachers, Aizawa-san. I promise you that. His grin grows in response. I'll hold you to that. Surprisingly enough, despite being in an unfamiliar home, you sleep soundly throughout the whole night without any problems. Much to your delight, when you wake, you find Shiro curled up at your side. Before going to sleep, you set an alarm on Aizawa's clock in order to make sure you didn't oversleep. However, you discover it wasn't needed since you find yourself waking up before it goes off. Now that I think about it, I can't remember the last time I ever slept in. I've always woken up early in the morning. You muse. I'm pretty sure there was a reason for it, but of course, I can't remember it. Damn amnesia. Since you are now fully awake, you move to turn off the alarm and spend a few minutes petting Shiro, who purrs happily in response to your actions. Then, you remember why you wanted to wake up so early in the first place. Yawning, you slowly pull yourself out from under the warm covers and head over to your clothes that you washed before going to bed. You head to the bathroom and change your clothes, leaving the ones you wore as pajamas in the laundry basket. Unfortunately, due to a lack of toothbrush, you have to settle with just using your finger to brush your teeth. Hopefully, you'll get the opportunity to buy one sometime today. Once you're dressed, you head for the kitchen so you can start working on breakfast. You pass the couch on your way and see Aizawa still fast asleep with Kuro curled up on his chest. The cat raises his head to stare at you, and you give him a smile as you wave. Instead of staying in the bedroom, Shiro makes her way to the couch so she can join the other cat on top of their owner, much to your amusement. Aizawa, of course, doesn't stir, completely unbothered by the added weight on his chest. Shaking your head at the sight, you enter the kitchen area and start pulling out the ingredients you'll need. Before you went to bed last night, you decided that you'd wake up early so you could prepare a healthy breakfast for you and Aizawa. Of course, that's not an easy feat, considering the lack of healthy food in the apartment. Thankfully, there are eggs in the fridge and there's still plenty of bread. So, you decide to make some scrambled eggs and toast for breakfast. In the midst of your preparations, Shiro enters the kitchen and starts rubbing against your legs. You are surprised to see Kuro hanging out in the doorway as well. That's when you realize that the cats are likely hoping you'll provide breakfast for them as well since their owner is still fast asleep. Going through your memories of last night, you recall seeing the cat food in the bottom cabinet near the sink. A triumphant smile forms on your face when you later find it. Meanwhile, both cats release victory cries, obviously just as happy as you are with your discovery. Giggling, you grab the food and fill the food bowls in the corner. As the cats chow down, you decide to refill their water bowls as well since they're on the low side. Once the cats are all taken care of, you return to the food. Thankfully, you didn't look away from it for too long, so nothing appears burned. As you're cooking, you find yourself thinking about Aizawa's unfortunate food situation. I have to do something. If I'm really supposed to be living here until Nedzu-san comes up with another place for me to stay, then that means I'm stuck with eating whatever Aizawa-san buys as groceries. I wonder if he'll let me do the grocery shopping. Maybe he won't care what I buy as long as he doesn't have to bother doing the shopping. Maybe I could ask Present Mike for some advice since he seems to be good friends with Aizawa-san. He might even take my side and agree his friend needs to eat healthier. Resolved to improve Aizawa's eating habits, you decide to go ask Present Mike for help sometime today when you get the chance. You're going to make that your goal for the day. Well, your secondary goal anyway. Your main goal is to not make a fool of yourself in front of Class 1A. You know they're a good group of kids, so you're sure they'll be polite toward you. And hopefully, they'll even come to eventually like you. However, you doubt they'll come to respect you like Aizawa or the other teachers since there's a clear difference between you and them. Plus, you're obviously not that much older than the students. Would they even be willing to listen to someone like you? You shake your head to clear your mind of those negative thoughts and proceed to turn off the stove and start preparing the plate. There's no point in worrying. I'm not here to become a popular teacher. All that matters is that I help protect their futures. As long as those kids get to stay safe, then it'll be fine. Shiro starts rubbing against your legs again, so you crouch down to pet the cat. I'm gonna do my best today, Shiro. So, hopefully, I'll have some good news to bring back once the day is over. She purrs loudly in response, making you grin. Catching movement out of the corner of your eye, you turn to see Kuro, who is calmly observing you from the other side of the room. Obviously, he still doesn't know what to make of you yet, which is perfectly understandable, considering the circumstances surrounding your sudden intrusion into his home. That's why you intend to give the black cat his space and will refrain from trying to pet him until he grows more comfortable with you, if that day should ever come. After you spend a few minutes petting Shiro, you work on cleaning up the kitchen. Once that's done, you prepare 2 glasses of juice and bring them into the living room before returning to the kitchen for the plate. During this time, you notice that Aizawa is still sleeping soundly, as far as you can tell anyway. If he's faking it, he's obviously a pro at it. Leaving his meal on the coffee table, you take a seat on the floor and dig into your food after turning on the TV. You keep the volume low as you channel hop and look for something interesting to watch. You stumble upon some kind of murder mystery show, which immediately grabs your attention since you've always liked these types of shows. At least, you think you have anyway since you can dimly recall watching shows like this in the past and enjoying them. As you eat, you have to defend your meal against Shiro, who is very much interested in your eggs. For whatever reason, she doesn't approach Aizawa's plate, as if knowing the food is for her owner. Obviously, she also thinks he needs to eat healthier. While you're fending off Shiro, Kuro returns to his previous spot on top of Aizawa's chest. However, rather than go back to sleep, he starts kneading the man's chest. It looks like he's trying to wake his owner up. His plan succeeds since after a few minutes you hear Aizawa groan, an obvious sign that he does not want to leave the world of dreams. The underground hero tries to push the cat away, but Kuro is relentless. He begins purring as he rubs his face against his owner's. The cute sight makes you giggle. This, of course, brings Aizawa's attention to you. When his half-masked eyes fall on you, you grin. Good morning, Aizawa-san. I made scrambled eggs and toast for breakfast. You should eat your portion soon before the cats decide they want it. Even though I've already fed them, Shiro has been trying to snatch my eggs for a while now. Shiro mewls loudly, obviously outraged that you'd accuse her of something like that, even though it's the truth. Aizawa snorts at the cat's reaction before moving his gaze to the coffee table. He sighs when his eyes land on the plate. You didn't have to make me anything. You shrug. I didn't, but I did anyway. So, you better eat it, so it doesn't go to waste. Thankfully, the older man doesn't protest further and starts eating his breakfast without complaint. You internally cheer at the small victory. I may not be able to do much in the grand scheme of things, but I can, at least, make sure Aizawa-sen eats healthier while I'm working with him. Obviously, this isn't something that's normally expected of teaching assistants, but you don't see the harm in doing this kind of thing. After all, you never promised to be a normal ta, now did you? After you both finish eating breakfast, you and Aizawa leave for UA. When you both later reach the school, the two of you immediately head for the principal's office. Despite your best efforts to remain calm, you can't help but feel nervous about your current situation. I can't believe this is really happening. They are seriously gonna let someone like me stay and work here. If I wasn't so grateful for their help, I'd be calling them insane for coming up with this idea. Nedzu is all smiles when you enter his office alongside Aizawa. Good morning. Why, Ensen, Aizawa-kun. I hope everything went well with the housing arrangement. While Aizawa grumbles quietly under his breath, you nervously chuckle. It was fine. Aizawa-sen was very accommodating. The principal claps his paws together excitedly. Very good. Now, I've explained the situation to Detective Tsukachi, who has promised he'll look more into your situation to see if we can determine the cause of your memory loss. In exchange for us allowing you to remain here at UA, we'd like your full cooperation in the investigation. You quickly nod your head. Of course, I'll do whatever you need me to. He beams at you. I had a feeling you'd say that. After we're done here, I'd like for you to stop by the infirmary so Recovery Girl can collect a DNA sample to see if we can find you in the system. Of course, we've already checked the quirk registry, but we were unfortunately unable to find you. Your shoulders droop as you stare at him in shock. You're not in the quirk registry, so, in a sense, it's possible that the world doesn't even know you exist. If the DNA search comes up with nothing, would you basically be a ghost in the world's eyes? A sudden nudge to your shoulder draws you out of your thoughts. Looking up to the source, you see Aizawa watching you. Calm down. It'll get sorted out eventually. No point in freaking out about it now. Realizing he's right, you take a deep breath and slowly nod. Then, you return your gaze to Nedzu, who's studying you closely. I'll do whatever I can to help. To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if you don't find out a lot about me because I don't really have any memories of me interacting with people. That includes people like doctors or other professionals you normally see. Nedzu rubs his chin thoughtfully. I see. I'll make sure to let Detective Tsukachi know about that as well. You have brought us a most interesting case indeed. Why, Ensen? Before you can reply, he continues in his perpetually cheerful tone. I also have some exciting news for you. I thought it would be pertinent that a uniform be prepared for you, so that it'll be easier for everyone to distinguish you from the students. Our teachers here normally wear their hero costumes for work, but since you are not a pro hero, I thought giving you a special UA uniform would be the best solution. When he gestures toward a suitcase on the ground near his desk, you approach it and open it after getting his permission. Inside is a nice white, long-sleeved blouse, a gray vest with a little, red UA emblem in the right corner, and a pair of black dress pants. You grin appreciatively. I like it. Thank you so much. But what should I do about my shoes? I know tennis shoes aren't the most formal footwear. Nezu waves a dismissive hand. That's fine. I remembered what you wore yesterday, so I didn't bother with finding another set of shoes for you. If you decide you'd rather wear something else, you can always buy another pair of shoes later on. He motions for you to approach the desk, and when you do, he hands you an ID card. You're surprised to see a picture of yourself along with your name and title on there. A part of you wants to ask where the picture came from while the other part is too scared to ask. The hybrid smiles. That's your school ID. It will allow you to get through our security without any problems. Of course, since you'll always be with Aizawa-kun, I'm sure you won't have any problems getting in anyway. After giving you your school ID card, Nezu proceeds to tell you more about the school and answers any questions that you have. Once the conversation eventually comes to an end, he wishes you good luck, and you bade him goodbye before following Aizawa out the door. Aizawa heads off to his class while you go get changed before hurrying over to the infirmary to see Recovery Girl. Thankfully, it doesn't take her long to get a DNA sample. Much to your surprise, she also even fingerprints you. You hadn't expected the heroine to have that kind of equipment, but it does save you the trouble of having to meet up with the police to do it. So, this is definitely a very convenient turn of events. By the time you finish your business in the infirmary, the first bell has already rung, so after getting some gummies and an encouraging smile from Recovery Girl, you hurry to Class 1A's classroom, leaving behind the suitcase with the clothes you were previously wearing with the heroine so you don't have to carry it around everywhere. Nervous doesn't even begin to describe how you feel as you make your way to the classroom. You're so apprehensive that you don't even realize you've already eaten all the gummies you were given until you arrive at the door to the 1A classroom and notice that your hands are now empty. A part of you wants to run since you've never had to deal with speaking in front of a large group like this before, but another part of you actually feels excited. Deep down, you've always wanted to interact with others like this. You can't remember why you never did, but maybe now is the chance to make your dreams a reality. And just like that, your nerves settle, and you find yourself surprisingly calm as you reach to knock on the large door. From this point on, things are gonna change. I'm gonna change. I won't be as weak-willed as I once was. I'm gonna do my best for these kids. I'm gonna actually try to use my power to help others rather than just keep quiet and hope for the best. I'm gonna take my future into my own hands. The corners of your lips curve upwards when you think of a person you know who has done something similarly with his life. If Midoriya can do it, then so can I. If I've learned anything from watching him in my visions, it's that nothing is impossible. It's at that moment you realize that you're mere seconds away from meeting the boy who has been a constant in your visions for many years now. Immediately, excitement wells in your chest. I finally get to meet him. I can't believe it. After all these years, I can finally see him face to face. Your earlier nervousness is nothing more than a memory now, since all you can think about is getting to meet Midoriya, something you've been wanting to do for a long time now, a very, very long time. Just before your knuckles rap against the door, a thought crosses your mind that makes you pause. It probably wouldn't be good if I get too visibly excited about seeing Midoriya, since that would put him on the spot and make the children suspicious. Even worse, they might think I'm biased, which is the last thing I want, so I'll have to be careful with how I act around him since I want to be a fair teacher. You nod to yourself as you finally knock on the door before you. I'm gonna do my best to be fair since I want to be the best teacher I can be. Because a great class like WhatIf deserves nothing less. Within seconds after you finish knocking, the door partially opens and you see Aizawa. Once he catches sight of you, he opens the door further. About time. Was wondering when you'd get here. With that, the older man turns around and heads for his desk while you slowly follow after him. You can feel the curious gazes of the 21 students on you, but you decide to keep your attention on Aizawa to see how he'll handle the introduction. Before he can say anything, a blonde boy with a black lightning-shaped streak in his hair, whom you recognize as Kaminari, grins excitedly. Ooh, who's she? A cute, new transfer student. You find yourself smiling at him, amused by his reaction. Well, at least one person is excited to see you. Kaminari immediately notices your smile, and his grin grows exponentially. The redhead behind him, Kirishima Ijiru, is also sporting a wide smile. Meanwhile, the girl with long earlobes sitting across from Kaminari, Jirukyoka, just sighs at her classmate's words. The student with glasses abruptly stands up from his desk and starts waving one of his arms similar to a robot. If you remember right, this boy is Ida Tenya, the class president of 1A, Aizawa-sensei. I was not aware that we would be having a transfer student. If I had known, I would have made the proper preparations to welcome her. Eda then immediately returns to his seat, looking just as prim and pristine as he appeared earlier before he stood up. It's obvious just from looking at him that he's a straight-laced student, which is probably for the best since someone like that is surely needed for a class like his in order to maintain the order of the classroom. Aizawa scowls at the outbursts, but before he can reply, you decide to answer on your own behalf. I'm actually not a transfer student or a student at all for that matter. so there's no need to worry about preparing something to welcome me. It's sweet of you to want to do so, though. While you smile warmly at it, you fight the urge to laugh as you watch him get flustered upon realizing that he made a big deal over nothing. A lot of the students look like they want to laugh but are holding back because of the annoyed look on Aizawa's face. The teacher sighs as he runs a hand through his hair. She's right. This is why, and she'll be my ta as of today. Her quirk allows her to see visions of the future. And because she has had some visions pertaining to our school, the principal has asked that she work here and offer her services. She won't be teaching any classes since she's not a hero nor a certified teacher. But if you ever need me but can't reach me, go to her and she'll get a hold of me. Because you're standing right beside him. You're the only one who hears him mutter under his breath. Or just bother her instead and let me sleep. You're just barely able to stop yourself from laughing out loud when you hear that quiet remark. In order to distract yourself, you let your gaze roam across the classroom, allowing you to take in all of the students' intrigued faces. When your eyes fall on the girl with a high ponytail, Yaoyorozu Momo, a vision hits you, catching you by surprise. The classroom scenery quickly fades away, and you soon find yourself in one of the school's hallways. There are several of the Class 1 students lingering about, possibly heading to lunch. But what grabs your attention is the grape-haired boy, Mineta Minoru, who sneaks up behind Yaoyorozu and suddenly flips her skirt, making her cry out in surprise. The vision ends shortly after that. In a blink, you're back in the classroom and on the receiving end of 20 sets of curious eyes. Aizawa rubs his temple tiredly. Another vision. Nodding absently, you surprise him when you start walking toward the students. Everyone watches with interest as you approach the desk of the student sitting right in front of Yaoyorozu, the desk of Mineta Minoru. At first, he seems elated by having your attention on him, but Mineta then starts to nervously sweat when he sees the serious gleam in your eyes and the deep frown on your face. He jumps in his seat when you slam your hands on his desk. You barely notice several other students do so as well, but you're not really paying attention to them at the moment. You can feel Aizawa's eyes on you, watching you closely, but you can't bring yourself to care about that either. There's something way more important you have to deal with. Mineta Minoru. Why is it that the first vision I have of you and Yaoyorozu after arriving is of you flipping her skirt? There's a hush in the classroom aside from Yaoyorozu's startled gasp as the addressed student stares at you with wide, fearful eyes. After Mineta stammers out an unintelligible response, you narrow your eyes at him. Mineta, I'm giving you a warning. If I personally catch you or have a vision of you doing anything inappropriate to any of your female classmates or any female for that matter, there will be consequences, understand? Such behavior is very unbecoming of a student who wants to become a hero. All of your classmates deserve equal respect. Then, with a sickeningly sweet smile, you turn to address the rest of the class. Of course, that applies to everyone here. Harassment is no joke. I'm sure the rest of you brilliant heroes to be already know that, though, right? Several of the students are now sporting fearful expressions, but all of them quickly nod in response to your question. Well, aside from Bakugo Katsuki, who's just scowling, and Todoroki Shoto, who's wearing a blank expression. The reactions you get from those two boys doesn't bother you since you feel like they will be the least of your worries in this area, so you don't bother worrying about their lackluster responses. Instead, you just focus your attention on Ida when he loudly declares that he will make sure no more harassment takes place in the classroom, an endeavor you hope he'll be successful in. After giving Ada a nod, you let your gaze roam across the room again. This leads to you noticing that all the scared students are male. Rather than appear afraid thanks to your earlier warning like the rest of their classmates, all the girls are looking at you with wide, hopeful eyes. The pink-haired girl, Ashido Mina, beams as she gives you a thumbs up. Meanwhile, Yaoyorozu's eyes look like they're actually sparkling with joy. Damn, how bad has Mineta been since school started? At the front of the classroom, you see Aizawa pulling out his sleeping bag before promptly going to sleep. Looks like you're in charge of entertaining the class for the rest of the period. As you turn to walk back toward the front of the room, your gaze falls on the student sitting across from Mineta. When you take in his avian features, you immediately realize this is Tokoyami Fumikage. When your eyes meet his, you're surprised when another vision hits you. It's short like the last one. This time you see Tokoyami battling against some villains at the USJ, attacking them with a bird-shaped, shadow-like creature that he summons. If you remember correctly, his quirk is called Dark Shadow. Within seconds, the vision ends, and you find yourself being watched by two pairs of eyes. In addition to Tokoyami's concerned red eyes, there's also Dark Shadow hovering beside him, watching you curiously with his yellow eyes reminiscent of fog lights. A large grin forms on your face as you clap your hands together excitedly. Your quirk is so cool, Tokoyami. You're both so strong. And Dark Shadow is so cute. I love him. Tokoyami's eyes widen in surprise as his feathers ruffle upwards, apparently a sign of his embarrassment since he can't blush. Before he can respond, Dark Shadow moves so that he's up in your face, causing Tokoyami to hiss in disapproval. Dark shadow. The shadow creature ignores the other in favor of examining you. A few seconds later, he grins broadly. You've got good taste. Not many people recognize how awesome we are right off the bat. I think you're gonna be my favorite teacher. You beam at his comment. Awa, you're so sweet. Can I pet you? You look really soft. Tokoyami freezes in surprise when you look curiously between him and his quirk, rather than give a verbal reply. He simply nods, obviously thrown off by this strange situation he has found himself in. Dark shadow chirps cheerfully. Sure, you can. I'll never turn down the chance to get pet by a cute girl. His container makes a choke noise while the rest of the class tries and fails to contain their amusement. Kirishima and Kaminari are two of the students that aren't even bothering to control their laughter despite his incessant demand that they be quiet. Delighted, you place your hand on the quirk's head, which feels incredibly smooth. However, when you try to dig your fingers a little deeper into what you think are his feathers, you discover how warm and soft the creature is underneath his glossy exterior. You softly coo, "Aw, you really are soft, dark shadow." He makes a strange, rumbling sound that's like a cross between a chirp and a purr as he pushes his head further against your hand like a cat. You and the other girls present make an awa sound, much to Tokoyami's embarrassment. The poor boy is now hiding his face in his hands. Worried that you're overwhelming the student, you move to pull away from the shadow creature to check on Tokoyami, but Dark Shadow is not having any of that. Nuo, not yet. In a blink, the quirk has himself wrapped around your shoulders and is now butting his hand against your hand for more pats. You stare at him amused while Tokoyami looks up in horror. Dark Shadow, unhand her this instant. I have warned you countless times about invading others' personal space. Dark Shadow whines pitifully, pushing against your hand until you relent and start petting him again. But, Fumi, she's really good at this, and her hands are so soft. This is like heaven. The rest of the students are having a field day with this. All the girls are either laughing or cooing at the sight. Even Kutakuji, who's been silent this whole time, is quietly laughing, judging by the shaking of his shoulders as he hides his face in his hands. A grinning Shirohanta, the student sitting in front of Tokoyami, has turned in his seat to watch the spectacle. Come on, Tokoyami, let the man live a little. He's having the time of his life. Can you really blame him for getting excited? Out of the corner of your eye, you see Midoriya scribbling away in one of his hero journals, obviously writing down everything that Dark Shadow is doing. He's also muttering under his breath, too quietly for you to make out what he's saying. After a few seconds of this, Bakugo abruptly turns in his seat to slam a hand down on Midoriya's desk. Shut the fuck up, Deku. No one wants to hear your damn muttering. Everyone goes quiet at that, watching as Midoriya immediately shies away from the other student with a whispered apology. Frowning, you stop your petting, much to Dark Shadow's distress, and move to stand in front of Bakugo's desk. Strangely enough, the shadow has chosen to remain across your shoulders, but you don't bother to ask him to release you since he's actually quite warm and comfortable. Bakugo scowls at you as he crosses his arms. What? You tilt your head as you hold his gaze. You just called him Deku, even though I know for a fact his name is Midoriya Izuku. Is that your nickname for him? His scowl deepens at your question, proving how much he hates this particular topic. So, what if it is? Briefly, your gaze flits toward Midoriya, who's watching the conversation nervously as he bites his lip. Then, it returns to the angry student sitting in front of him. For his nickname, are you using the Deku meaning useless or the one meaning I can do it? There's a strange hush in the room at the question. Everyone appears interested in seeing what their fellow student will say. Rather than respond, however, Bakugo just holds your gaze for a moment before averting his gaze, much to everyone's shock. You, on the other hand, had a feeling he'd go quiet. After all, he's no idiot. The blonde obviously realizes that calling the other boy useless to your face is not the right move here. Much to Bakugo's surprise, you don't push him on the matter. Instead, you focus your gaze on Midoriya, who stiffens once he realizes your attention is on him. He then turns a bright red when you warmly smile at him. If it's with the meaning I can do it, then I have to agree it's a good nickname. You approach the flustered student's desk and ruffle his hair, making him squeak in embarrassment. I foresee a bright future for you, Midoriya Izuku. I'm really excited to see what kind of hero you become. The tension in the air eases at your words, and everyone watches as Midoriya practically beams, radiating pure joy at your words. Thank you, sensei. I promise to do my best. His smile is so bright you consider asking Yaoyorozu if she can make you a pair of sunglasses. Oh man, you are a regular ball of sunshine, aren't you? I feel like I'm gonna go blind if I stare at that pure smile any longer. He makes a choked noise as his whole head instantly turns red. Meanwhile, the rest of the class start laughing at his embarrassed reaction. Kaminari snickers loudly. Damn, Midoriya, remind me to teach you later how to accept a compliment from a girl. That was pretty bad, hilarious but bad. Jiru rolls her eyes. I feel like anything he learns from you will just hurt him in the long run rather than help him. Hey, why, What about my future? You saw mine and Fumikage's future earlier, right? That's why you got all glassy-eyed. Dark Shadow suddenly asks, instantly garnering your attention. Amused, you start scratching him under his chin, making him rumble in pleasure. I saw you two being badass. I can't really go into much detail, though, cause my quirk prevents me from revealing some of my visions. Yaoyorozu raises a hand and starts to speak once you nod at her. Is it because it is dangerous for people to be made aware of what's to happen in the future? At that, everyone turns to look at you curiously. Realizing you have the class's attention, you decide you might as well tell them more about your quirk. While I can't say for sure if that's the case, I do think that's why I can't tell people about the more important visions I get. The male student with big lips, Sadu Rikido, raises his hand and asks, more important. How does that work? You ponder how to reply as you continue to pet Dark Shadow, who remains strewn across your shoulders despite Tokoyami's continued efforts to get his quirk to release you. I guess the best way to describe it is I have visions of simple things, sometimes like someone tripping in the hallway. And I also have more worrisome visions like of villain attacks. Everyone straightens in their seats at the mention of villains. You grin when you see their interested expressions. I can warn someone if I know they're about to trip, and I can technically warn about a villain attack. I just can't give in-depth details about the villain attack, such as who's attacking or what their quirk is. Todoroki calmly tilts his head to the side. It doesn't sound like it's a very useful quirk if you can't even tell anyone about what's to happen. He winces at his blunt words while several of his classmates give him sharp looks or quietly hiss his name. You're right. I'll be the first to say my quirk isn't all that helpful. Sure, I know when things are about to happen, but what's the point if I can't tell anyone? Still, even so, I'd like to be able to help others with it if I can. Uraraka Achako, a girl with rosy cheeks sitting in the far left desk in the back, raises her hand. Aizawa-sensei said you weren't a pro hero, but do you want to become a hero someday, sensei? Blinking, you find yourself at a loss for words for several seconds, making the girl tilt her head curiously in response. Shaking your head, you give her a small smile. While I think heroes are amazing, I can't say I've ever considered becoming one, especially considering how unhelpful my quirk is. I can't even control it, so I get my visions at random. Definitely not something a hero would want happening during a big fight. You rub your neck sheepishly. Honestly, I don't think I have what it takes to be a hero. Not everyone can do it, but I do respect everyone who chooses that path. With a warm grin, you let your gaze roam across all the young faces around you. But, you guys, I think you all have the potential to become something amazing. That's why I'm here. I want to do whatever I can to help protect your futures, so everyone can see what all you'll accomplish when you become heroes. I can't wait to see what you guys do. At her words, every face brightens, and many of the students start cheering enthusiastically. While he may not be smiling like the others, Bakugu's scowl is definitely less heated compared to before, which you count as a win in your book. Maybe you'll be able to positively influence these students after all. Sensei. At the sound of a timid voice, you turn to see Midoriya staring at you with a raised hand. What's up, Midoriya? He stammers for a few seconds before taking a deep breath and meeting your eyes straight on. I think you'd be an amazing hero too if you ever decided to give it a try. Oh, of course, if you don't want to, that's also fine. I just mean, you have such an amazing quirk and, watching as he runs out of steam, you find yourself chuckling, making the poor boy blush harder. Thank you, Midoriya. Hearing that means a lot to me. I think that's the first time I ever got complimented on my quirk. I appreciate it. His eyes widen in disbelief. Really? But your quirk is so cool. I mean, sure, you can't give a detailed description of your visions, which is a shame. I wonder if there's a way to work around that limitation. I'll wait. What I mean to say is that despite the limitation, you still know what will happen, so if you were a hero, you could possibly take action to stop whatever takes place in your visions. You just need to learn how to kick ass like me, and Fumikage is what he's saying. Then, you can stop the villains all by yourself. Tokoyami sighs deeply at his quirk's remark while you laugh. Well, you're not wrong. I'll have to take that into consideration. Thank you, Midoriya. Also, if you want to ask me more about my quirk, you can. It doesn't bother me. It's at that moment the bell rings, signaling the end of the period. Immediately, Aizawa emerges from his sleeping bag with a yawn. All right, you've all been introduced. If you have any more questions for her, ask outside of class. Treat her with the same respect you would the rest of the staff, all right? Yes, sensei. After hearing the students' responses, Aizawa moves to leave and motions for you to follow him. Upon realizing that means Dark Shadow needs to release you, you turn to Tokoyami, who's tiredly rubbing his forehead. Dark Shadow, why? And sensei needs to leave. I understand that you enjoy basking in her bright presence, but as a creature of darkness, you must realize the danger of continuing to do so. You give Dark Shadow a curious look, to which he nods his head. Yeah, he's always like that, but it's one of his charms. He grows on you, I promise. With that, Dark shadow disappears into a sputtering Tokoyami's chest after chirping goodbye to you. Grinning, you gently pat the avian featured student on the shoulder. Your quirk is officially my favorite one of the class, Tokoyami. Congrats. I look forward to seeing you two in action. His feathers ruffle further from embarrassment as his classmates cry in outrage at the show of favoritism. You roll your eyes as you head for the door. If any of you have quirks that are good for hugging or are just super cute, feel free to show me them, and I'll consider changing my mind. Tokoyami just hides his face in his hands while several students laugh at your words. As you're heading for the door, you pass by the six-armed student, Shoji Mezu, and friendly clap him on the shoulder, catching him by surprise. My money's on you, big guy. 6 arms means you have like 3 times the normal hugging power, right? You grin broadly when he quietly chuckles in response. Although you can't see his mouth because of his mask, there's a slight crinkling around his eyes which makes you believe he's smiling. I can't say I've ever used my quirk for that kind of competition. From the desk across from him, you hear his invisible classmate, Hagakure Toru, giggle. That sounds like a fun competition, though. I think Shoji-kun would do really well. What about you, Ajiro-kun? Have you ever used your tail to hug someone? The blonde sitting on the other side of Shoji, Ajiro Mashurao, blushes as he scratches his head. Not that I can recall. Maybe around my parents when I was younger, but I can't really remember for sure. Before you're out the door, the blonde-haired student sitting close by, Aoyama Yuuga, winks at you as he leans against his clasped hands. Until we meet again, mademoiselle. You give him an amused smile before waving at the class. See you later, guys. Hope the rest of your classes go well. Sorry my introduction took up so much of your time. The green-haired girl sitting 2 seats behind Aoyama, Asuitsuyu, tilts her head. There's no need to apologize, sensei. We all had fun. Ribbit. Several students cheer in agreement as they send you bright smiles and wave enthusiastically. Yeah, this was way more fun than what we usually do. Tokoyami's and Midoriya's reactions were hilarious. I'm looking forward to having more classes with and sensei. Same here. See you later, sensei. After giving them another wave, you leave the classroom, all the while grinning so hard your cheeks begin to hurt. Much to your surprise, you find Aizawa right outside the door waiting for you, although you really shouldn't be surprised, considering your situation. He takes one look at your happy expression and rolls his eyes. Then, the older male walks off, and you quickly move to follow after him. Looks like your stint as a TA at UA might not be as difficult as you originally thought it would be. At the very least, your first encounter with Class 1 has given you hope about your future at UA. Maybe, just maybe, things will work out for you after all. After the two of you leave the classroom, Aizawa leads you to the teacher's lounge. Much to your surprise, when you both enter the room, you discover that the only other teacher there is All Might, who is currently in his true form. When Aizawa moves further inside to take a seat at his desk, All Might's eyes fall on you, and they widen in panic. He hadn't noticed you when you first walked inside because you were standing behind Aizawa's taller form. His alarm leads you to believe he has no idea who you are or what you know about him. He abruptly coughs into his hands, and you worry that your sudden appearance surprised him enough to cough up blood. Before you can ask if he's all right, the symbol of peace gives you a shaky smile. Hello there. I don't believe we have met. My name is Yagi Toshinori. Before he can give his usual excuse, you smile cheerfully as you move to take a seat across from him at the table. You're All Might, right? I've had many visions of you in the past. It's nice to finally meet you in person. Aizawa-sen's new Ta. Blood spurts from the blonde's mouth as he jolts in surprise. Frowning, you immediately reach for the nearby tissue box and hand him some tissues, which he accepts with a quiet thank you. Aizawa doesn't look up from his desk when he says, she already knows about your limit. Her quirk allows her to see visions of the future, and apparently, a majority of them focused on you for whatever reason. She's already talked to Detective Tsukachi, so we know she's telling the truth. Principal Nedzu wants her to stick around since she's also been having visions about my class, including a possible villain attack on the USJ field trip. Yagi stares at you with wide eyes. So, that's why the field trip was rescheduled. Principal Nedzu told me about moving the date of the trip, but he said that I should ask Aizawa-kun for more details. His gaze moves toward the other teacher. He also said that you wished to speak with me after you finished with your class and that I should come here to see you. An annoyed scowl forms on Aizawa's face. That explains why no one else is here. I have no idea why he told you that. There's nothing I need to speak with you about. This, of course, confuses the taller male, but before he can respond, you clear your throat to get his attention. I have a feeling Nedzu-sen was probably more interested in you meeting with me than with Aizawa-sen. He just brought up his name instead, maybe to surprise you. The underground hero sighs as he scratches his chin. That sounds about right. Well, I'll leave you two to that then. With that, he goes back to his work while Yagi watches you with a mixture of nervousness and curiosity. Maybe he's unsure about a stranger knowing all his secrets. You can't say that you blame him. You clench your hands, which are resting in your lap, into fists. I know about your time limit and your quirk, but I promise I have never told a soul about it. Aside from myself, the only people who know about your secrets are the ones you've personally told. I understand if you may find it hard to believe, but I swear I'm telling the truth. For several seconds, the older man holds your gaze with those penetrating blue eyes of his. Then, a warm smile forms on his lips. I believe you. I may not have a quirk like Tsukachi-kun's, but I consider myself a good judge of character. I can tell you're an honest person. Thank you for keeping my secrets safe all this time. His smile then falls as his eyes gain a serious glint. You mentioned my quirk. You know what it is and what all it entails? Mindful of the other person in the room, you nod your head and quietly reply, I do. I also know about your successor, but I haven't told anyone about that secret either. Just as he opens his mouth to speak, you continue. Let's just say you weren't the only one my visions focused on when I was growing up. I had wondered why I started getting visions of this random kid. But I understood once the two of you met. Your fates are intertwined. Yagi clenches his fists tightly as he sets them on the table. Do you know what kind of future we'll have? Can you see far into the future, or is there a limit? You run a hand through your hair. If you're wondering what's to become of your successor in the far-off future, I have no idea. I've never had a vision that occurred more than a year in advance. I actually haven't seen anything related to your successor that's to happen past the field trip. Of course, I'm sure that'll eventually change. The tension in his frame eases at your words. Was he expecting you to deliver some bad news? That's when you remember one of your past visions that focused on the symbol of peace. Realization dawns your features. You were thinking of Sir Nidai and the future he foresaw for you. He flinches at your words before sporting a shaky smile. Ah, so you even know about that. I must say those foresight quirks are nothing to sneeze at. Yes, you are correct. My old psychic's quirk allows him to see a person's entire future, so it would seem his is slightly different from yours. You drum your fingers against the table as you nod. Unlike me, he can control whose future he sees. My visions are random, so I can't control my quirk at all. I have no idea when I'll get a vision or who it'll be about. I've already had 2 since class started, and they were both random. Before I came here, I usually only got 1 vision a day. Now, it seems I can have several. I can't tell anyone about what happens in most of them, though. Yagi tilts his head curiously. Interesting. Nidai never had any problems with revealing what he saw. I wonder why your quirk is different. A frustrated scowl forms on your face. I have no idea. It really sucks. I get an awful migraine if I ever try to explain what I've seen. The only thing I can think of that could explain it is the visions I have typically involve important events that can't be stopped. There are some things that are just meant to happen, no matter how much we'd like to change them. Not to say the future is set in stone or anything like that. You quickly add, I just mean one way or another some things will happen, no matter what. His face darkens as he clasps his hands together. I see. That does make sense. Realizing where his train of thought is going, you decide to change the subject to something you've been wanting to speak with him about. I actually wanted to ask you a question if that's all right with you. He blinks in surprise before giving you a friendly grin. Of course. It's no problem at all. What can I do for you? You lace your fingers together as you lean forward against the table. Considering Nedzu-sen hasn't spoken with you about me, I'm assuming you don't know the rest of my situation. I was found unconscious yesterday on campus without any recollection of how I got here. I can't remember where I came from or even my own age. My memory is filled with holes. Warmth envelops your chest when you notice the obvious concern now on his face. The number 1 hero truly is a kind man. Before he can respond, you continue. So, because of this, it's understandable that I come across as suspicious. The principal allowed me to stay here since my visions concern Class 1A, and I can warn of dangerous events that may befall them. However, that's not enough to prove I'm trustworthy, so I've been assigned to Aizawa-san so he can keep an eye on me. A frown forms on the blonde's face, but you hold up a hand before he can speak. It's fine. Just as they have no reason to distrust me, they also have to reason to trust me. That's why I plan on working hard to earn everyone's trust. That's the reason why I wanted to speak with you. There's a secret I'd like to tell Aizawa-san since he knows I'm hiding something, but I won't do it without your express approval. His eyes grow large with realization. You mean? You nod your head. He knows that I have had visions about that person, but he doesn't know why. I kept quiet because it's not my place to tell. However, I'm not fond of keeping this a secret from him when I do believe he, of all people, should know. Yaga's expression becomes conflicted. Well, I can understand your reasoning, and I don't want this to cause more mistrust to breed between the two of you. However, sighing, you rest a hand against your cheek as you prop your elbow on the table. It's a big secret that not just anyone can know. I understand. However, I want you to understand that I have another reason for why I want to share this secret with him. He tilts his head. Another reason. You let your gaze drift over to the hunched form of Aizawa before returning it to the man sitting across from you. Don't you think your successor deserves as much help as possible? You're only one man, Yagi-san. You can't always be there to offer advice and training. That's not your fault, of course, but it is his job to help the students in his class. He's a stern man, but he's kind. I saw his dedication to his students firsthand in my visions. An amused grin forms on your face. I know you two are pretty much night and day when it comes to your teaching styles, but you gotta remember he's been doing this for a while. He knows what he's doing. Plus, I have a feeling you'll be needing as many eyes as you can get watching over that kid of yours. I predict they're gonna be a real trouble magnet. Yagi chuckles nervously. I'm afraid your prediction is fairly accurate. I cannot deny I'm worried about my student. Maybe you're onto something here. Several minutes pass in silence before he finally sighs. No matter how much I try, I can't come up with a reasonable argument to your words. I know he won't reveal my secret, but it's still worrying all the same. I haven't shared it with many people. About time. You both jump in surprise at the sound of Aizawa's voice. The two of you turn to watch the tired man approach the table and take a seat beside you. Did you really think I couldn't hear anything just because you two were whispering? Pouting, you wag a finger at the underground hero. It's impolite to eavesdrop. Aizawa-san. Yagi stares at you wide-eyed, apparently surprised that you had the nerve to scold the other teacher. Meanwhile, Aizawa simply rolls his eyes. I wasn't. It's not my fault you're both bad at keeping quiet when you talk. Now, tell me what this big secret is that apparently concerns one of my students. My money's on Midoriya, considering how much you already hang around him, even though it's only the first week of school. The blonde freezes before abruptly coughing into his hand. You quickly push the tissue box in his direction, which he gratefully accepts. After the coughing fit subsides, Yagi rubs his head sheepishly. So, I was that obvious. For several seconds, Aizawa just stares at him before responding in a deadpan voice. If that was your definition of being subtle, then I never want to go on an undercover mission with you. Ever. You snort loudly, unable to stop yourself. Meanwhile, the symbol of peace pouts slightly at the comment before eventually sighing. Well, I guess that's understandable. I am new to this kind of thing after all. Maybe it is better that I explain the situation to you after all. With that, Yagi goes into an in-depth description of One for All, explaining how it's a stockpile quirk that can be passed down from one user to the next. He then reveals how he met Midoriya and deemed the boy worthy of inheriting his quirk. Once he finishes, the older man goes quiet, waiting to see how his fellow teacher, who remained silent throughout the explanation, will respond. A few minutes later, Aizawa finally breaks his silence. When exactly did you officially give Midoriya your quirk? Yagi starts to nervously sweat at the question, moving his gaze to look anywhere but at the other teacher. Realizing he's trying to find a way out of having to answer, you decide to do it for him. The morning of the entrance exam. A sharp pang of guilt stabs you right in the heart when the symbol of peace gives you a betrayed look. It feels like you just kicked a puppy, but a million times worse. Apparently, the number one hero has another great power at his disposal besides his amazing quirk. How could just one look be so powerful? What? A chill runs down your spine at the threatening tone you hear. You and Yagi both slowly turn to face Aizawa, who's wearing a frightening scowl. You gave him the quirk hours before the exam. That's why he nearly destroyed his whole body taking out that 0-pointer. The blonde raises his hands in a placating manner. In my defense, I couldn't give him the quirk until his body was strong enough to handle it. That's why I was training him those 10 months. He finished his training the morning of the exam. Of all the reckless, rather than finish what was sure to be quite the frightening scolding, Aizawa abruptly cuts himself off and starts grumbling several choice words under his breath. After a few minutes of this, he tiredly rubs his eyes. If this is such an amazing quirk, why does he keep hurting himself every time he uses it? Sheepish, Yagi starts rubbing the back of his head nervously. I was apparently a natural with the quirk, so it gave me no problems. But that's not the case with young Midoriya. It would seem his body is still adjusting. I'm sure he will adapt with time and more training. With a sharp glare, the underground hero stabs a finger in the blonde's direction. I know you're new to teaching, but you better work on this. I can't have my student breaking his bones every time he uses his quirk. If you don't know what to do, then find someone else who does. The symbol of peace nervously nods before releasing a weary sigh. I'll work on it. I promise. You clap your hands together happily. That's all we can ask. I'm glad that's all settled. It'll be good for Midoriya to have another adult looking after him who knows the whole situation. The corners of Yaga's mouth curve upwards. I'm glad that young Midoriya has someone like you looking after him. Why, and Kun. I feel like he'll be in good hands. Grinning, you pump up your fist excitedly. Of course, I'm gonna make sure he gets nothing but the support and appreciation he deserves. He's gonna be a great hero. His smile grows at that while Aizawa just rolls his eyes. Just don't spoil him. That's the last thing he needs. A pout forms on your lips. It's not spoiling if it's the truth. If he does something good, I'm gonna compliment him just like I'll do for all the other kids. Positive reinforcement is important, Aizawa-san. Yagi starts chuckling when the other man scowls at your words. I feel like you two are going to be a perfect example of the good cop, bad cop scenario. You laugh as you start teasingly poking the underground hero's arm. You're definitely the bad cop. Aizawa swats your hand away before rising to his feet and heading back to his desk. I'm going back to my work. It's at that moment the door to the teacher's lounge abruptly slams open. You and Yagi jump in your seats while Aizawa curses under his breath. Present Mike strides into the room with a large grin. Hey, Y-N-Chan. Good to see you again. Shouda's not giving you too hard of a time, is he? You shake your head with a laugh. Nah, he hasn't been too bad. He was kind enough to fall asleep, so I could spend the whole period chatting with the class. The vocal hero chuckles at your words as he pulls up a chair beside you. Yagi takes this as his cue to head to his desk, so he can start on his own workload. That's Shouda for you. The kindest guy you'll ever meet. His grin grows. You're in for a fun school year, being his ta. You're lucky enough to join him the one year he hasn't expelled anyone within the first few days of school. You give him an amused look. The reason I'm here in the first place is because of his class. The one class he happened to not expel is the one that's a huge trouble magnet. Because life obviously hates me. Aizawa's dry remark makes you and Present Mike both snort loudly. You can hear Yagi do the same, but he tries to cover it up by coughing into his hand. Once you rein in your amusement, you find yourself recalling the decision you made earlier this morning. After checking to make sure Aizawa is back at his desk, you lean closer to the cheerful hero and lower your voice. I actually wanted to ask for your help with something, Mike-san. Present Mike mirrors your movements. Oh, now, what can I do to be of service? You check to make sure Aizawa's not looking your way before continuing with a whisper. His apartment has nothing but junk food in it. How do I convince the man that he cannot live off junk food? That's not healthy. There's a brief pause before Present Mike starts cackling loudly. You immediately try to shush him. I was being serious. Don't laugh. Unfortunately. He continues to do just that for several minutes before finally calming down. After he finally stops laughing, the blonde lowers his sunglasses so he can wipe away the tears in his eyes. I'm sorry, but that is too funny. You've known him for less than a day, and you're already trying to mom him. I knew you'd be interesting, but I didn't think you'd be this awesome. Embarrassed. You scowl at the hero. I'm not trying to mom him. I mean, this is technically for my sake too, since I'll be staying with him until other housing arrangements are provided for me. His jaw drops dramatically. What? You're staying at his apartment? Unsurprisingly, the loud blonde's remark is heard by everyone in the room. While Yagi makes a choked noise, Aizawa growls in annoyance. Shut up. It's only temporary. Present Mike wisely chooses to close his mouth when his friend aims a threatening glare his way. Once the underground hero is back to looking at his computer, the blonde returns his attention to you. How long is temporary? You shrug. I guess until Nedzu-san has something built on campus. He opens his mouth, closes it, and then opens it again. What about your stuff? Did you get the chance to go back home and get what you needed? The corners of your lips dip downwards at the question. I don't know where my home is, Mike-san. I can remember what it looks like, but I can't remember where it is. I have no idea how I even got to UA. I'm missing a lot of my memories. Present Mike frowns, but it only lasts for a few seconds. Then, his trademark grin is firmly back in place. That just gives us an excuse to go shopping. Did someone say shopping? Once again the door slams open. This time it's a female hero whom you recognize as the R-rated heroine, Midnight. A large smile forms on her lips when her eyes fall on you. You must be the mysterious Ta I've heard about. She moves to take a seat on the other side of you and drapes an arm across the back of your chair as she leans in close. Her eyes have a certain gleam to them that makes you nervous. Now, I wonder what you could have done to catch not only the principal's but also that grouch's attention. What kind of secrets are you hiding behind that cute face? Why the hell does the principal not tell anyone anything? If his goal is to make my life miserable, he's succeeding. You chuckle nervously at Aizawa's words. Hopefully, that ire won't eventually be directed toward you, or you'll be in trouble. Thankfully, Present Mike comes to your aid. Apparently, the principal and Shouda have taken an interest in Y-N-Chan's quirk. It allows her to get visions of the future. And since some of what she's seen relates to UA, they're keeping her here for now. Midnight pouts in disappointment. I was hoping the reason would be more interesting. Her pout then morphs into a smirk. Oh well, I'm sure we can still have fun with this situation. Can't say I've ever imagined Aizawa with a ta. Always figured he'd chase them off within the first week. Hopefully, that won't be the case for you. You nod your head firmly. I won't run away. I'm gonna do my best to help however I can. Besides, I know that despite his scary face that Aizawa-san is a nice person deep down. There's a pause before Present Mike and Midnight start roaring with laughter. While Aizawa glares heatedly at his laughing colleagues, Yagi tries to hide his own amusement in order to avoid being on the receiving end of that glare. just as it looks like the underground hero is going to come over to shut them up personally. The laughing heroes finally start to calm down. Present Mike wipes at his eyes while Midnight drops her arm from the back of your chair to your shoulders. She grins at you. I like you. I think I'm really gonna enjoy having you around. Present Mike aims his finger guns your way. Same. Anyone who can compliment Shouta so fearlessly is cool in my book. I think you'll be a good tall for him. You beam at the praise. Not expecting it but grateful all the same. Thank you. Midnight ruffles your hair before removing her arm from your shoulders. So, what were you saying about shopping? The blonde snaps his fingers in her direction. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. Why, En-chan is unfortunately having memory problems, so she doesn't know where she lives. So, she has none of her stuff like clothes and other basic necessities. I figured a shopping trip was in order to fix that. A scary grin forms on the R-rated heroine's face as she rubs her hands together. What a great idea. How about I lend a hand? It's been a while since I went out shopping with someone since my schedule is usually so busy. While you want to feel happy about her offering her assistance, you can't help but feel fearful when you take in the other woman's excited expression. Somehow, you get the feeling a shopping trip with her will be far from normal. Present Mike, for whatever reason, appears unaffected by the heroine's expression. He just cheerfully grins. All right, the four of us could all go together. We haven't gone out in a while. It'll be fun. I better not be included in that four. At the sound of Aizawa's annoyed drawl, you turn your head to see him glaring at his friends. I don't care if you want to take her shopping, but count me out. I hate shopping. The two heroes sitting beside you both pout in his direction. For several minutes, you watch the adults have a stare-off, neither side willing to budge. You then decide to intervene before it can get worse. I appreciate you wanting to help me, but I don't have any money to go shopping with. So, I won't be able to buy any clothes. All four heroes bring their gazes to you, even Yagi, who wasn't even a part of the conversation. They're all frowning now, much to your confusion. Before you can question their reactions, Midnight pulls you into her chest and hugs you tightly. You poor thing. Don't worry, we'll take care of everything. If the principal doesn't pay you in advance so you can buy what you need, I'll handle the expenses. A girl having only one pair of clothes to her name is unacceptable. While you would like to thank her for her kind offer, you can't because she's currently smothering you with her breasts. Present Mike, thankfully, notices your plight and moves to help pull you away. I agree with you, but you gotta let her breathe. Midnight. Once she releases you, you greedily inhale to soothe your poor oxygen-deprived lungs. As you're doing this, Present Mike gently claps you on the back while Midnight grins sheepishly. Why, turning your gaze toward Aizawa, you see him watching you. The principal plans on giving you money for essentials, so don't worry about it. He'll probably ask you to go by his office after school lets out. Your shoulders slump in relief. Thank goodness. You really need to buy a toothbrush. And you'd like to buy your own pajamas rather than make Aizawa share his clothes. Some more undergarments would also be nice. Another question comes to mind that makes you tilt your head in his direction. And for groceries, he scowls, obviously understanding your hidden intentions. While Present Mike snickers, Midnight watches the conversation with interest. After a few seconds, Aizawa sighs and waves a dismissive hand in your direction. I'll give you money for groceries. Happy, you beam at him. Very, thank you. Midnight raises an eyebrow. Wait, why is Aizawa the one giving her grocery money? The vocal hero grins at her, cause he's in charge of looking out for her while she's here. She's staying at his apartment. Silence ensues for several seconds before Midnight starts cackling. This is the best thing to happen all week. I am loving this situation more and more. While the two heroes laugh at Aizawa's expense, you hunt for some paper and a pencil so you can make a grocery list. There's a lot you need to buy. Not long after Present Mike and Midnight quiet down, you notice them lean closer to you out of the corner of your eye. Apparently, they're curious to see what you're writing. Shortly after they do, you hear, "Oh my god, he didn't just get a towel. He got a new mom." Present Mike snorts loudly at the R-rated heroine's words. Meanwhile, in the background, you can hear a pencil snapping in Aizawa's general area and a strangled noise from Yaga's desk. The poor symbol of peace is getting a lot of surprises today. You hope he hasn't lost too much blood because of them. The laughter is abruptly cut off by Aizawa's capture weapon, which wraps around Present Mike's mouth. When you turn around, you see piercing red eyes glaring at the blonde as the underground hero's hair floats upwards. Not another sound. After the blonde quickly nods his head, Aizawa releases his friend and then fixes his dark gaze on you. Realizing what he wants, you pout. You need to eat healthier, Aizawa-san. I'm not apologizing for trying to improve your eating habits. You're supposed to be an example for your students. Do you really want them to take after you and eat nothing but junk food? There's a hush in the room as the other three adults in the room wait for Aizawa's response with bated breath. He glares at you for a while, but you don't budge, so he eventually relents with an eye roll. This is not what I signed up for. With that, the underground hero heads back to his desk without another word. A few seconds later, an arm drapes across your shoulders, and you turn to see Present Mike's large grin. Man, do I like you. This is the beginning of a beautiful friendship. I can tell. Midnight leans in close with a matching grin. We are gonna have so much fun together. I cannot wait. While her words make you feel a little nervous, you can't help but feel excited about them as well. You grin. I feel the same way. It's the end of the day, and you're back with Class 1A, watching Aizawa teach. Unfortunately, there's not really anything you can do at the moment, although the older man has assured you that he'll be getting plenty of paperwork soon to distract you. How thoughtful of him. You're just as relieved as the students when the bell finally rings, signaling the end of the day. It was super awkward just sitting at Aizawa's desk with nothing to do. It doesn't take long for the students to move out of their desks and get all their stuff together. As they all start to leave, you're pleasantly surprised when several of the students wave goodbye to you on their way out. All of the girls are especially energetic, giving you bright smiles. Minda walks past you at a brisk pace, not once sparing a look in your direction. Judging by his slight trembling, he must be remembering the look on your face when you were watching the hallways at lunch. As soon as he noticed you were there, Minda dashed toward the cafeteria and stayed clear of all the girls on his way. I'd like to think this will be enough to stop him, but I'll probably have to keep an eye on him for the next few weeks. Eventually, he'll get the message and stop for good. You pull yourself away from your thoughts when Midoriya passes by. Upon remembering an idea involving him that you came up with earlier today, you call out to him. Hey, Midoriya, could you come here for a minute? I was hoping you could do me a favor. He jolts in surprise at being addressed but doesn't hesitate to approach the desk. While Uraraka and Ida hover by the doorway, Midoriya waves them off, so they promise to wait for him outside by the gate. Aizawa heads out the door as well, much to your surprise. Maybe he plans on waiting in the hallway, so you can have some privacy. Midoriya nervously adjusts the straps of his book bag. How can I help you? You give him a smile. You like to analyze quirks, right? You write about them in your journal? His eyes widen in surprise. Yes, but how did you know that? Your smile turns sheepish as you rub the back of your head. For several years now, I've had visions of your future. You were probably 3 or 4 when I started seeing visions of you. As expected of a boy with his intellect, Midoriya catches on quickly. He looks around the classroom, as if to make sure the two of you really are alone, before quietly asking, then, you know about. When his voice cuts off, you nod as your smile morphs into a frown. I know that you were born quirkless. I know about the bullying you went through because of it. I know what your relationship with Bakugo is like and how you got your quirk from All Might. I talked with him earlier, so he knows that I know about his secrets. Noticing his anxious expression, you quickly rise from your seat and move to stand in front of the boy. You gently place your hands on his shoulders and give them a squeeze. I won't tell anyone, Midoriya. It's not my secret to tell. If you don't want me to tell anyone about the bullying either, I won't. I would like for something to be done about Bakugo, but Midoriya immediately starts shaking his head, giving you a pleading look. Please don't. I know what Kaken did was bad, but I don't want him to be punished for what happened in the past. He wants to be a hero. I don't want to be the one who prevents him from accomplishing that. Sighing, you ruffle the student's hair. You're a good kid, Midoriya. Not many people can forgive and move on like you've done. However, I want you to realize that it wouldn't be your fault. It would be Bakugo's because he's the one who did all those cruel things. He should have known better. A hero would never hurt others like he did. He opens his mouth, most likely to defend his former childhood friend, but you stop him by gently flicking his forehead, causing him to jolt in surprise. No excuses, Midoriya. It's not your job to make them for him. Bakugo needs to learn to take responsibility for his actions. At your pointed look, Midoriya slowly nods to show his understanding. After he does that, you pull your hand off his shoulder while your other hand goes to scratch your cheek. You avert your gaze. Just like I want Bakugo to take responsibility, I want to do the same. I owe you an apology, Midoriya. His jaw drops. Why would you owe me an apology? You've done nothing wrong. A sigh escapes your lips as your eyes meet his. I knew that you were suffering all those years, but I never did anything for you. I wanted to, I really did, but I had no idea where you were. Maybe if I had looked harder, I could have offered you the support you needed. Midoriya frantically waves his hands. You don't need to apologize. Like you said, you had no idea where I lived. I don't want you to blame yourself for something you couldn't control. Of course, he'd say that. You knew as soon as you decided to apologize that the boy would react this way. Realizing that you won't get anywhere by apologizing, you decide to go another route. I'm about to say something really important. It's something I've wanted to tell you for years now. Listen closely, okay? He quickly nods his head as he gives you his undivided attention. Of course, a fond smile forms on your lips. You are not useless. You are going to be a great hero, the best the world has ever seen. His breath catches, and you notice his eyes gaining a shining gleam. Your expression softens at the sight. Even before you got your quirk, I wanted to tell you that. I had been worried at first about you wanting to become a hero when you had no quirk. But over the years, you won me over with your determination and your strong spirit. I thought to myself, if anyone were to be the first quirkless hero, it would be this kid. Honestly, you were a big inspiration to me. When I saw how hard you worked, never giving up despite how much the world brought you down, it made me want to work hard too. It's hard to explain, but you gave me hope. So, thank you. While Midoriya chokes back a sob, you pour all your feelings into your final sentence, hoping you'll be able to express even a fraction of the gratitude you feel toward the boy before you. Thank you for being my hero, Midoriya. In a flash, the boy has his arms wrapped tightly around you, catching you by surprise. You immediately return the embrace, softly squeezing him as your vest grows damp from his tears. The two of you remain like that for a while. You're surprised that Aizawa hasn't come in to check on you or that Ida and Uraraka haven't come to look for their friend. You're glad they haven't, since you'd rather wait until Midoriya is ready before you pull away from him. Finally, after some time passes, his tears begin to ebb, and the student slowly pulls away, using his fists to wipe his face. There's a red flush to his cheeks, probably from his embarrassment over suddenly hugging you. When he stammers an apology, you pat his shoulder and assure him it's fine. I know I can't do much as a non-hero, but you can always come to me for help, Midoriya. I'll do whatever I can to support you. The soft smile he aims your way gives you a warm feeling in your chest. Thank you, Sensei. I really appreciate it. After he takes a few minutes to clean himself up, Midoriya gives you a curious look. Earlier, when you mentioned a favor, you asked about my hobby of analyzing quirks. Was there a quirk you wanted me to look at for you? You grin. I'm glad you reminded me. I'd like for you to analyze my quirk for me. He gives you a wide-eyed look. Why you want me to analyze your quirk? Nodding, you point at his book bag. I figured you probably already wrote something in your journal after meeting me this morning, and I was hoping you could keep track of everything I tell you. Considering how good you are at bringing out the best of quirks, I thought you could help me make the most of mine. I figured it'd be a good idea to keep note of it too, just in case I get any more new developments. His eyes gain a calculative look. New developments. Your grin grows at his expression. Yeah, for the longest time, I only ever had 1 or 2 visions a day. Some days I wouldn't have any at all. Yet, yesterday, I had 3 after arriving at UA, and I had 2 this morning. I have no idea why. Midoriya gains a thoughtful look as he grabs his chin. I wonder if a change in environment is an affecting factor. It's possible you were just missing the necessary stimuli before, and the conditions have somehow been met here. Maybe. He starts muttering quietly under his breath at a speed you can't keep up with. You laugh at the sight before moving to ruffle his hair again, causing him to squeak in surprise. Well, I'll let you think on it, okay? You better get going. Uraraka and Ida are waiting for you. Realizing you're right, Midoriya nods his head and quickly heads for the door. Before he leaves the room, he suddenly stops and turns to face you, catching you by surprise. Your eyes widen when he bows his head. Thank you for what you said. It really meant a lot to me. Growing up, those were the words I wanted to hear more than anything. It makes me really happy to know that all this time there was someone out there rooting for me like that. When he raises his head, you see a bright smile on Midoriya's face. I promise I won't let you down. I'll become the #1 hero for sure. With that, he dashes out the door as quickly as he can. You find yourself chuckling at the sight as you slowly approach the door. There's an incredibly warm feeling in your chest now. You feel like you're about to burst. You're so happy. Is this what it means to be a teacher? I know I just started, and I have a long way to go before I can even have the right to call myself one. But a soft smile forms on your face. If this is a normal feeling that comes with teaching, I'll do my best so that I can experience it every day. I can't think of anything that I'd rather do more than invoke that sort of joy in my students. I really hope I can. When you leave the room, you're surprised to see Aizawa waiting for you. You know you shouldn't be, but you half expected him to leave for the teacher's lounge, considering how much time you spent talking to Midoriya. You start to fidget nervously when several minutes pass without him saying anything. All he does is stare at you. Did you do something wrong? Were you pulling an All Might and showing too much favoritism? That really wasn't your intention. But you can't deny the strong urge to spoil the green-haired boy with the love and attention that he was denied for years by every other adult in his life besides his mother. Finally, after what feels like forever, Aizawa nods. Not bad. And that's all he says. After saying those 2 words, the underground hero turns around and walks off. Dumbstruck, you just stare for several seconds before you recover enough to follow after him. You have no idea what he's talking about. Is he referring to what you did with Midoriya earlier? Did he hear all that? He's not asking about the freckled boy's relationship with Bakugo, so maybe he just caught the end of it. The one thing you do know is the older man's gaze seems a little softer now for some reason. But surely, you're just imagining it, right? After leaving the Wanna classroom, You and Aizawa head for the principal's office to pick up the money you'll need to buy clothes and other supplies. That shopping will be done with Present Mike and Midnight, who promised earlier that they'd wait for the two of you at the school's entrance so you could all go shopping together, much to Aizawa's ire. Unfortunately for him, you don't think those two are going to let him get out of going. Aside from worrying about shopping, there's something else weighing on your mind. Today was the day that the USJ field trip was supposed to be attacked by the League of Villains. Obviously, that didn't happen because the field trip got rescheduled, but what happened to the villains? Did they storm the facility expecting to see All Might and a class of teenagers only to find heroes and police officers waiting for them instead? Or did something else happen? After you and Aizawa enter his office, Nedzu gestures for you both to take a seat in the chairs located in front of his desk. While you're approaching the chairs, you notice that Aizawa has a serious gleam in his eyes, much like the hybrids, and you can't help but feel nervous. As soon as you sit down, the principal says, taking your warning into consideration, we postponed the field trip and instead sent police officers to wait at the scene to intercept the villains should they attack. However, despite giving the facility a thorough search, no villains were ever spotted. Your chest clenches at his words. You hang your head to hide your face. So, you think I was wrong about the attack. Despite how much it hurts you to think about it, you can't blame them if they decide not to trust your visions from here on out. That would be perfectly reasonable. You can't come up with an explanation for why the villains didn't attack. By all accounts, they should have shown up. The information they found said the field trip was today. They should have been there, but they weren't. And now you look like a complete idiot for making such a big deal about an attack that didn't even happen. The worst part of it all is that you know you were right about the attack. Your visions have never once been wrong. Even though you have no way to explain it, deep down in your bones you know that the villains will attack. Like you told All Might earlier, there are some things that just can't be avoided. You clench your hands into tight fists. So, what? The villains postponed their attack. Is that what's happening? But how did they know the field trip was postponed? It doesn't make sense. Why? And the sound of Aizawa's voice drags you out of your thoughts. With a jolt, you turn in surprise to see him watching you closely. Once he has your attention, the older man sighs, calm down. You think too much. We know you weren't lying when you told us about your vision, so obviously, something's wrong here. You blink, surprised that his thinking is along the same line as yours. When you hear Nedzu subtly clear his throat, you direct your gaze to the principal, who remarks, yes, rather than think your vision was inaccurate, I've come to a much more worrisome conclusion. The serious tone in his voice makes your stomach churn uneasily. More worrisome? Nedzu presses his paws together as he nods. There's a chance the villains found out about us postponing the field trip. I'm not quite sure yet how they got a hold of this information, since there haven't been any break-ins since the fiasco with the reporters. But that would explain why no one showed up today. Your eyes widen in horror. So, then it's possible they have a way to gather inside information undetected. Aizawa crosses his arms with a scowl. It shouldn't be possible. But considering how easily they sneaked in the other day, I'm starting to wonder. Frowning, you look at the two with worried eyes. Ben, what are you going to do about the field trip? What if the villains find out about the new trip date if you just reschedule and attack then? Both of their faces grow dark at your question. The underground hero growls quietly. If that's the case, then I'm canceling it. I'm not knowingly putting my students in danger if there's a chance the attack will still happen. Nedzu sighs as he looks off to the side. The only problem with that is there's a possibility the villains may just decide to look for another opportunity to attack. There's also the fact that the students do need to go through rescue training at some point. We can't put off the USJ visit forever. Aizawa's scowl deepens at that, but he doesn't argue, obviously seeing the reason behind the hybrid's words. If we're to eventually do it, I want the security around the facility to be increased. No one knows about the field trip until the day of it. I'm not taking any chances. The principal nods with a smile. Of course, I feel the same as you. Our students' safety is our highest priority. We'll take all the necessary precautions to make sure everything proceeds smoothly. He then directs his attention to you. And please let us know if you have any other visions about the attack, or if there's anything else we need to know now while we're making preparations. Your brows furrow in concentration as you try to mentally go over everything you've told them already. What else could you say that would be important to them? As you go over what you know, you remember the three main villains that seemed to be leading the attack. There was a man named Shigaraki who was covered in hands. His quirk allowed him to decay whatever he touched. He commanded a strange creature called Namu, and it had the strength to rival someone as strong as All Might. It's when your thoughts drift to the last leader that your eyes grow large. The man made of mist. You need to tell them about his quirk. You're about to blurt it out, but at the last second, remember your quirk's drawback. So, you decide to go with a two-worded warning instead. Warp quirk. Aizawa narrows his eyes while the principals gain a calculative look. I see. Well, that explains how they got inside so easily. One of the villains has a teleportation quirk. For some reason, the words teleportation quirk make you involuntarily flinch. They give you an uneasy feeling in your chest that you can't explain. Thankfully, neither of them question you about your reaction. Either they didn't notice, which is unlikely considering who they are, or they felt it was best not to question you about it. Either way, you're relieved. You wouldn't know what to tell them if they did ask. Rather than focus on that, you decide to try to warn them about the other villain leaders as well. Decay quirk. You then make a grabbing motion with your hand, hoping they'll catch on. Unsurprisingly, Nezu does so very quickly. A villain who can decay whatever he touches. Quite a troublesome quirk. Are you perhaps telling us about the main leaders of the attack? Since there were so many participating, it's understandable that you wouldn't know everyone's quirks, but maybe a few stood out. Nodding, you try to find a way to describe Nama without giving yourself a serious migraine. Strange creature, really strong, all might. With each new word, the pounding in your skull increases. Still, you need to provide as much information as you can. Created, multiple quirks, shock absorption. Wincing, you decide that's about all you can handle at the moment. You really don't want to put yourself through the same thing as yesterday. You close your eyes and take steady breaths in an attempt to will the headache away. When you feel a hand on your shoulder, you open your eyes and see Aizawa frowning at you. Just when you wonder if you did something to upset him, he asks, "Do I need to use my quirk? Will it help?" Shocked, you just blink at the man. After a few seconds, you respond, "And no, it's fine. I'm not actively trying to reveal my visions right now, so the headache should go away on its own eventually. I don't think the residual headaches can be erased since my quirk's technically not involved now." The corners of your lips curve upwards into a small smile. "But thank you. I appreciate the offer." He studies you for a little while before nodding and pulling his hand away. "Don't overdo it." Your smile turns sheepish. "Right, I'll be careful." When you hear chuckling, you turn to see Nezu watching you both with a grin. "I'm glad to see the two of you are getting along so well. It seems putting you together was the right idea after all." Aizawa scowls but refrains from commenting, probably realizing there's no point in arguing with the principal. You laugh nervously, wondering how you should respond to such a comment. It's true the underground hero is treating you more kindly as compared to when you first met him. However, you don't know if you'd go so far to say the two of you are getting along well. You'd like that, though. It'd be nice if you could become friends with the older man like you did with Present Mike and Midnight. Growing up, you had always wanted a friend, but something prevented you from having any. Of course, thanks to your amnesia, you can't remember what that something was. Shaking your head to clear your mind of those depressing thoughts, you direct your attention toward the hybrid. "I know the hints for the last villain were kinda incoherent, but were they helpful?" His grin grows at your question. "Very much so. From what I can discern from your hints, it would seem the villains have somehow created a creature to kill All Might. To accomplish such a great feat, it must obviously be very strong. Although All Might is the target here, we can't afford to leave him out of this field trip if there's a chance that creature is brought along with the other villains." Aizawa gains a scary look in his eyes. He's not allowed to do any hero work that day or even the day before. Whatever date we decide for the field trip, we better tell him in advance, or things might turn out like her vision. Nezu nods his head. "I agree. Hero work is obviously important, but now that he's a member of our staff, he needs to prioritize his teaching responsibilities. I'll be sure to have a talk with him later." Shortly after that, the little meeting concludes, and you bade the principal goodbye, leaving the office with some cash in your pocket. You were surprised by the amount you were given, but when you tried to question the hybrid, he simply smiled and waved you off. A smile rises to your lips. There are so many kind people at UA. I don't think I've ever come across so many people like them before coming here. Your expression grows determined. "I can't let their kindness go to waste. I need to work extra hard at my new job, so they won't regret allowing me to work here. I'm gonna go beyond plus ultra, because that's what UA is all about." As you and Aizawa head for the school's entrance, you catch sight of Present Mike and Midnight waiting for you at the gate. You're surprised to see them dressed in civilian clothes rather than their costumes. Do they keep extra clothes on campus just in case? Or maybe that's how they handle leaving the school if they're just going home from here rather than going to work. You muse. I could understand why they wouldn't want to take public transportation wearing their costumes. They'd get mobbed by fans everywhere they go. The most shocking part of them being out of costume is how tame Present Mike's hair is now. Rather than just sticking straight up like a cockatoo, his hair is now in a stylish man bun. He's also wearing regular glasses now instead of sunglasses. You wonder if they're prescription or if he just likes eyewear. Present Mike energetically waves at the two of you as he grins. "Hey, about time. We thought you'd never leave the principal's office." When you get closer to them, Midnight links her arm with yours, pulling you along with her as she walks through the gate. "We have a lot of shopping to do and not a lot of time to do it. I can only spare a few hours, so we gotta hurry so we can cover all the best stores." Aizawa scowls when Present Mike drapes an arm across his shoulders and starts pulling him along. "Oh hell no. I want no part of this. I'm going home to sleep." Pouting, The blonde gives his friend a pleading look. "Aw, come on, Shouta. Live a little. Besides, we're celebrating your new Ta's first day of work at UA. You have to be there." "Tell him why," En-chan. After nodding in agreement, a grinning Midnight focuses her gaze on you to see your response. Meanwhile, you nervously flit your gaze about as the three pro heroes watch you. When your gaze finally falls on the underground hero, you decide to throw caution to the wind and go along with it. Maybe if you ask really nicely, he'll agree. "Please, Aizawa-san, I think it'd be fun if we all hung out together for a little while. I promise to be quick, so we won't spend too much time in the stores." There's a brief pause. And then, in a blink, Midnight hugs you close against her chest like she did this morning and squeals, "You're too cute. What's with those puppy dog eyes? You're a dangerous girl after all, aren't you?" Present Mike is laughing uncontrollably. "You can't say no now, Shouta. She gave you the puppy dog eyes and everything. What kind of hero says no to a face like that?" You can hear some quiet grumbling from Aizawa's direction as you struggle to escape the heroine's vice-like grip. Unfortunately, you're not having any luck. Thankfully, the underground hero decides to come to your rescue. "She can't breathe, Aoyama. Let her go, or you'll have to explain to the police why you suffocated my Ta." Sweet, precious oxygen fills your lungs when Midnight finally releases you. Is this going to become a normal thing with the woman? Should you be concerned? Acting as if she didn't nearly kill you just now, the older woman loops her arms through yours again before directing you toward the train station. "Oops, sorry about that. I'll treat you to some dinner as an apology." "Oh yeah, free food." Present Mike cheers. Midnight raises an eyebrow at the blonde. "I never said anything about treating you, Yamada. Fend for yourself." A pout forms on his face. "Awa, come on. That's no fun." As the two friends bicker back and forth, you watch the conversation with an amused smile. When you later look curiously over at Aizawa, you see him shaking his head. However, you can just barely see the upward curve of his lips at one point before his mouth is once again covered by his capture weapon. Noticing your eyes on him, the older man looks your way. After a few seconds, he nods his head slightly before returning his gaze to the people on the street. It takes you a moment, and then you realize that's his way of showing his agreement with your earlier request. Your smile grows in response. Since you're out in public now, Midnight and Present Mike tell you to call them by their real names in order to avoid unwanted attention. You're surprised when they tell you their names so readily, since that's not something a pro hero reveals to just anyone. You can't help but feel honored by the blatant show of trust. Shortly after you arrive at the nearby mall, you discover Aoyama was not kidding about hitting as many stores as possible. As she drags you this way and that, you send the other pro heroes a pleading look, but neither come to your aid. The cowards. Yamada comes into a few stores, but he mainly hangs out with Aizawa to make sure his friend doesn't run away once you all are distracted. The blonde does take the underground hero by the pet shop at one point, which seems to soothe Aizawa's irritation. The two spend quite some time in there. You make a horrible mistake early into this venture when you tell the older woman you've never gone shopping with someone like this before now. After another suffocating hug, Aoyama tears through the stores with even more tenacity than before. Despite the supposed time limit, she always takes the time to point out particularly revealing outfits to you along with any sexy lingerie she comes across, much to your embarrassment. At least, the other two heroes aren't present whenever she does that. About 2 hours later, you decide that you're satisfied with what you have. In addition to a few new outfits, you found some undergarments, pajamas, a toothbrush, toothpaste, a hairbrush, shampoo, conditioner, body wash, and some feminine products. Your favorite purchase is definitely the cat backpack you found by chance. It's white and has a cute cat face on it. There are even little cat ears sticking out on the top of it. Quickly, after you bought it, you ran to show Aizawa, wearing a big grin. "Look, Aizawa-san, it's Shiro." While the other pro heroes cooed in the background, he just stared before finally nodding in approval. "It's good." For whatever reason, when you beamed at his response, Aoyama and Yamada both hugged you simultaneously, talking about something being really cute. You didn't realize they liked cat merchandise as much as you and Aizawa did. After you finish buying everything you need, the four of you decide to get some dinner together. As Aoyama and Aizawa go back and forth over which mall restaurant you all should go to for dinner, a store catches your eye, making you pause. Noticing this, Yamada comes to a stop beside you. "What's up? See something else you want?" Nodding absently, you head for the store with the blonde right behind you. "I have an idea." The store that you both enter is a school supply store. You know you don't really need anything in that regard since UA has everything covered. But there is something you'd like to get if possible. As you're looking, you come across a section filled with just candy, which makes total sense to you. No kid can turn away from candy, so you bet any that come in here for supplies probably also leave with some sweet treats as well. You rub your chin thoughtfully before an idea comes to mind that makes you grin. as you start gathering several different candies. Yamada whistles. Didn't know you were that big a fan of sweets? Why? And Chan. Shaking your head, you grab a pack of Twizzlers. They're not for me. They're for the students. Awa, that's adorable. You're really gonna spoil them, aren't you? Yamada chuckles. At that, you pause and turn to look at the taller man with a hesitant expression on your face. Is that okay? I know it's unnecessary, but he tilts his head curiously. But you find yourself flushing in embarrassment as you avert your eyes. Growing up, I always wished for this kind of thing. I can't really remember who taught me, but I know their teaching method was stern. I never got things like rewards for when I did something well. It made me think I wasn't doing enough, so I kept pushing myself harder in hopes that one day my efforts would be rewarded. Your voice lowers to a whisper. They never were, though. There's a long pause before you feel a warm hand on your shoulder, prompting you to look up. When your gaze meets his, Yamada gives you a kind smile as he squeezes your shoulder. I think it's a great idea. I can understand Shouta's stern teaching methods, but I think nothing's wrong with showing some positive reinforcement through rewards. If the kids do something that you think should be rewarded, go for it. You'll make their day for sure. When you beam at him in response, his smile morphs into a broad grin. Soon after, he turns to face the candy rack with his hands on his hips. Now, let's make sure we get a good variety. Kids' tastes are all different after all. Get a little bit of everything. You pump your fist into the air. Right. The two of you spend at least 15 minutes going through the available choices before finally making a decision on what all to get. After that, you head for the stickers and start picking out some to buy. At his amused look, you grin cheerfully. Everyone loves stickers, Yamada-san. No matter what age you are, if someone gives you a sticker, you accept it without question. Yamada nods sagely. Truer words have never been spoken. Not long after that, you both leave the store, with you holding a bag full of candy and stickers. This is probably your second favorite purchase after the backpack. Both Kayama and Aizawa are there waiting for you when the two of you exit the store. Kayama raises an eyebrow at your grinning faces while Aizawa just releases a long-suffering sigh. She puts her hands on her hips. You two were in there a while. What could you have possibly needed in a school supplies store? You and Yamada share a look before replying simultaneously. It's a secret. The older woman pouts. No fair. I get leaving Aizawa out of it cause he's no fun, but you can't do that to me too. Especially not after everything I've done for you. Realizing she's right, you wave her over and whisper what you bought while Yamada laughs at Aizawa's annoyed expression. When you finish, Kayama grins. Now, that's adorable. Be sure to send pics of Aizawa's reaction when he sees what you bought. I want to see it. Yamada vigorously nods his head in agreement. Same here. Always send any funny pictures you take of Shouta my way. I'll add them to my album. You stare at him with wonder. You have an album? Of course, I do. You want a J. He's abruptly cut off by a punch to his gut courtesy of a very irritated Aizawa. You talk too much. With a laugh, Kayama directs you toward a nearby restaurant. Someone's getting shy. The underground hero aims a glare her way, and you can't help but feel amazed by how well she takes it. They really are good friends. The glares he's given you in the past are nothing compared to one on his face right now. Poor Yamada needs a few minutes to recover before he can finally move to catch up. He makes sure not to walk too close to his friend since the other is still scowling. Thankfully, dinner passes peacefully. Every now and then, Yamada needs to be shushed for speaking too loudly, but your group doesn't get rowdy enough to get kicked out, so you count that as a win. After everyone finishes eating, the four of you leave the mall and head back to the train station where you and Aizawa part ways with the other two. Yamada, who had been carrying some of your bags, hands them over to Aizawa, who's carrying the others. Kayama declared that the men had to make themselves useful in this way since they didn't help with any of the actual shopping. That's why the only bag you're carrying is the one from the school supplies store. As Yamada is passing along the bags he was carrying, Kayama surprises you when she pulls you into a hug, thankfully not one of her usual suffocating ones. I had fun. We should go out again soon. It's been a while since I last did something like that. You return the embrace. I'd like that. Thank you for helping me, Kayama-san. Kayama grins at you. Of course, we girls gotta stick together after all. If you ever need any more help, just let me know. And if Aizawa gives you any trouble, let me know, and I'll set him straight. Her grin turns a little sadistic then, and you chuckle nervously in response. You're saved from having to reply by Aizawa, who pulls you away from her. He scowls at the other woman. Stop that. I don't want her to be influenced by your sadistic tendencies. While Kayama pouts at him, Yamada moves to give you a friendly clap on the shoulder. It was fun, and Chan. We should all definitely do this again sometime. I know Shouta had a good time too. He's just too shy to admit it. Yamada. There's a warning note in the underground hero's voice which his friend picks up immediately. He pulls his hand away from your shoulder with a grin, sending you a not-so-subtle wink. The corners of your lips curve upwards. Thank you for your help, Yamada-san. I really appreciate it. He aims some finger guns your way. Anytime. I'm always happy to help. Soon after that, you and Aizawa part ways with the other pro heroes and start heading back to Aizawa's apartment, shopping bags in tow. As the two of you sit on the train, you give him a nervous look. You really don't have to carry the bags if you don't want to, Aizawa-san. I know Kayama-san forced you to earlier, but I don't mind carrying them the rest of the way. He slumps back into the seat with a sigh. It's fine. They're not heavy, so it's not a big deal. Might as well carry them all the way back. A part of you considers pressing further, but in the end, you decide that there's really no point in doing so. Thank you. Aizawa waves his hand dismissively. Don't worry about it. If you want, you can consider this me returning the favor. You tilt your head curiously. Returning the favor. What did I do? The older man gives you a side glance before closing his eyes. You let me in on that secret. I'm glad I know the whole situation with those two now. Confusion briefly crosses your features before realization and surprise take its place. He must be referring to the secret of OFA. You hadn't expected him to actually thank you for convincing All Might to tell him about OFA. You honestly don't think you did anything worth thanking, but you know better than to bother saying that to the teacher. So, instead, a warm smile forms on your face. You're welcome. The rest of the journey home is quiet. On the way, the two of you make a quick stop at a nearby grocery store where you pick up a few ingredients. You don't get everything on your list, but it's enough to satisfy you for now. You decide to carry the groceries since his hands are already full. When you both arrive at the apartment, you're both welcomed warmly by Shiro and Kuro, who are loudly demanding food. No doubt they're wondering what took their owner so long to get home. While Aizawa juggles the bags with the cats underfoot, you quickly head into the kitchen to fill their bowls after leaving the grocery bags on the counter. Within seconds, the cats come dashing in, obviously having heard that telltale sound that signals their food is ready. When you enter the living room after putting away the groceries, you're amused to see the shopping bags on the floor and Aizawa already strewn out on the couch with an arm across his eyes. Trying not to disturb him, you quietly start gathering up the bags so you can move them to the bedroom. Thankfully, there's plenty of space in there since the older man doesn't really own a lot of things. You can shove my clothes to the back of the closet and hang your stuff in there. Or you can use the bottom drawer of the dresser. It's empty. Startled, you turn to look at Aizawa, but he hasn't moved an inch since you left the kitchen. He isn't even looking at you. Amused, you nod your head even though he can't see the movement. All right, thank you. Is there anything in particular you'd like for breakfast? He huffs at the question. You know, you're not obligated to make me anything, right? You don't owe me anything for letting you stay here. You roll your eyes. I know, cooking for one extra person isn't a big deal. I like cooking for others. So, if you want, you can consider this being another favor for me. When he doesn't reply, you just shrug before making your way to the bedroom. After everything is unloaded, you plan on taking a shower and going to sleep. Today has been a very eventful day. French toast. The words are so quietly muttered you wonder if he had really intended for you to hear them. Once they register, a bright smile forms on your face. French toast it is. Good night, Aizawa-san. Right before you get out of hearing range, you barely hear him mumble, good night. You enter the bedroom with a large grin on your face. You had been worried at first about this housing arrangement, but now you can't help but feel that things will somehow work out. You think you'll be just fine here. As promised, the following morning, you prepare a delicious batch of French toast for breakfast, which is well received, considering the pleased glint you see appear in Aizawa's eyes while he's eating. Naturally, you are very delighted about this. After breakfast, you and Aizawa head for work. Since there's still time before the bell rings when you two eventually arrive at UA, the older man heads for the teacher's lounge either to sleep or look over paperwork. Knowing him, it's probably the former. Rather than follow his example, you decide to head straight for the WhatIf classroom since you want to see if any students have already arrived. It's early enough that it makes sense for the classroom to still be empty. That's why you're surprised when, after you enter the WhatIf classroom, you see Ida and Yaoyorozu already in their seats, doing some reading before class. The class president immediately jumps to his feet to bow with the vice president following right behind him. Good morning, sensei. You smile as you wave at the two. Good morning, Ada, Yaoyorozu. You two are here early. Are you always the first ones to class? Ada makes a chopping motion with his hand as he returns to his seat and adjusts his glasses. Of course, as class president, it's my duty to always arrive first to welcome my classmates as well as my teachers. Furthermore, I firmly believe a student should always arrive early to their classes. A hero should never be late. Yaoyorozu smiles at his words. But instead of sitting back down, she approaches you with her hands held behind her back. I agree that punctuality is important, but I had a special reason for arriving so early today. You tilt your head curiously. A special reason. Nodding shyly, she pulls her hands in front of her to reveal a cute little goodie bag tied with a pink ribbon. Inside are what appear to be chocolate truffles. I wanted to make you something to show my gratitude for what you did for me yesterday. Yaoyorozu explains, I really appreciated what you said. Of course, I also wanted to welcome you to our class. She warmly smiles. I look forward to spending the school year with you, and sensei. And now you feel like crying. That is probably the sweetest thing anyone has ever done for you. It's definitely not helping that she's giving you one of the sweetest smiles you've ever seen. Do teachers have to deal with their students being this cute every day? You don't think you can handle being a teacher if that's the case. Your heart isn't strong enough. Doing your best to keep your cool, you give her a grateful smile as you accept the gift. Thank you, Yaoyorozu. You really didn't have to go through all the trouble on my behalf, but I appreciate it. These look delicious. I can't wait to try them. When she beams at you, you're reminded of Midoriya's sunshine smile. Oh damn, there are 2 of them now that you gotta watch out for. How does Aizawa remain so straight-faced all the time when he has such cute kids in his class? Maybe you can ask him for tips later. You're welcome. I was happy to do it. Please let me know what you think of the taste. Before you can reply, Ida cries out in dismay. I cannot believe I failed to prepare a welcoming gift for sensei. If not for Yaoyorozu-kun's quick thinking, our class would have had to live with the shame caused by my forgetfulness. This kind of carelessness is unforgivable. Yaoyorozu moves to assure her classmate. It's all right, Ida-san. That's why we're a team. You can always count on me when it comes sharing the burden of the responsibilities given to us. He bows his head toward her. Thank you, Yaoyorozu-kun. You truly are an excellent vice president. I promise I won't let you down again. On my honor as class president. There's a happy flush to her cheeks at the compliment, and you can't help thinking how cute both students are. What good kids. You take a seat at Aizawa's desk. I did tell you yesterday that you didn't have to do anything to welcome me. So, there's no need to feel bad. Ida shakes his head as he does another chop with his hand. Even so, this will not happen again. I swear it. Shortly after that, the rest of the students begin to trickle in, with most of them aiming smiles or greetings your way. With each smile you receive, the warmth in your chest increases. Damn, you already have a soft spot for them, and it's only day 2. You are so weak. When Tokoyami passes by your desk, Dark Shadow pops out and greets you cheerfully. Good morning, Grinning, you give him a little head scratch once he gets close enough. Good morning, Dark Shadow, Tokoyami. The avian-featured student nods his head in greeting before sending his quirk an exasperated look. We have talked about this. It is rude to address her so casually. Cease that at once. Dark Shadow waves at him dismissively. Why should human rules apply to me? Besides, it's just a name. It's not like she's said anything to stop me. Relax, Fumi. Tokoyami gives you an apologetic look. I apologize on his behalf. He can be quite stubborn, but he means no offense. You smile in amusement. It's fine, Tokoyami. It doesn't really bother me. Plus, he does have a point. I never really thought about etiquette laws for quirks before. Of course, I've never met a quirk like Dark Shadow till now. The shadow creature proudly puffs up his chest. Because I'm one of a kind. Nothing can compare to this level of perfection. I am relieved to see you are so humble about your skills and that you never let it all go to your head. Tokoyami's deadpan remark makes you snort loudly. Meanwhile, his quirk huffs in indignation before disappearing into his vessel's chest. Soon after, the student moves to his seat as he greets some of his classmates. The next person who stops by to see you is Midoriya. He's actually one of the last few students to arrive, so the bell should be ringing soon. Good morning, Midoriya. What's up? A shy smile forms on his lips. Good morning. I was wondering if the offer about your quirk still stands. You grin at the eager look in his eyes. Sure does. What kind of questions you got for me? In a flash, he has a notebook pulled out to write in. Surprisingly enough, it's not the one that got burned up by Bakugo. That must mean he's either starting a new hero journal, or since you're not a pro hero, he's starting a separate notebook just for you. You said you're unable to share details about certain visions. Is there something that stops you from speaking about them? Midoriya asks. Out of the corner of your eye, you see a few students aim curious looks your way. Half the class appears to be chatting while the other half is watching you and Midoriya. You nod your head. I can't really explain why, but I get a horrible migraine if I start talking about those visions. It starts off as a light headache, but the more I try to talk, the worse the pain gets. It can get to the point where it gets so bad I can hardly think, let alone speak. It really sucks. Midoriya quickly jots down the information, all the while muttering quietly under his breath. And you've never found a way to counteract the pain. Shaking your head, you drum your fingers against the desk. Nope. The closest to that would be Aizawa-san using his quirk on me. As soon as he did, the pain went away, but I couldn't remember what I was talking about. I knew it was about a vision, but I couldn't remember any details. His eyes widened at the information. So, it's bad enough that Aizawa-sensei would intervene with his quirk. You find yourself wincing at the memory. Yeah, that was my fault. I was so eager to talk about my vision that I forgot about my drawback. Was the vision that bad? Blinking in surprise, you turned to see it was Kirishima who had asked the question. That's when you realize the whole class has arrived. and they're all staring at you curiously. It looks like Ada is about to scold his classmate for asking, or maybe it was for interrupting your conversation with Midoriya. Before he can, you wave at him to show it's okay. Yes, it was, Kirishima. It was very bad. Probably one of the worst ones I've ever had. You grimace as you recall what happened to the 3 teachers. Their injuries were definitely the worst you've ever seen. Definitely not a pretty sight. Are you alright, sensei? Uraraka worriedly asks. Confused, you turn to see the brunette and several other students sporting concerned expressions. In front of you, Midoriya is biting his lip anxiously. Realizing you had inadvertently caused them to worry about you, you start waving your hands wildly. I'm okay. Really, sorry for worrying you all. It's at that moment the bell rings, and Aizawa strides into the room. Everyone is instantly in their seats, but there are a few sending you not-so-subtle looks. After gathering up the homework that was due, the underground hero hands it to you to grade, proving he really was serious about getting work for you to do soon. Thankfully, he gave you a grading rubric since the homework is related to hero studies, the one subject you never had any lessons on. So, while he teaches, you get to work, checking everyone's answers. It's after you finish with Yaoyorozu's assignment and write down her perfect score that you remember the stickers you bought at the store. Maybe this could be your first chance to use them. Despite what you told Present Mike at the store, you are a little nervous about actually using the stickers. What if the students get mad at you for treating them like kids? You don't want to offend them. In the end, after several minutes of deliberation, you decide to throw caution to the wind and put a cute cat sticker with the words "You're perfect" right by her score. You give everyone else who had a good score a sticker too. As much as you'd like to give everyone one, you know it'd defeat the purpose of the stickers when these are supposed to be rewards. Right after you finish adding all the stickers, you hear a familiar voice drawl, "What are you doing?" Startled, you squeak loudly before moving to cover the homework. And nothing. You can feel the students' eyes on you and hear several try to muffle their laughter, but you can't afford to pay them any attention. Preventing Aizawa from seeing what you did is more important. What if he gets mad and scolds you right in front of the class? That would be so embarrassing. However, in the end, your efforts are futile. Somehow, he manages to sneak Yaoyorozu's paper away from you so he can look at it. You hang your head in shame and brace yourself for the harsh words that will be coming at you any minute now. After a long pregnant pause, Aizawa incredulously asks, "A cat sticker? Seriously?" There's a hush in the room before. "We get stickers now. Did I get one? Is it just cats, or are there other animals? I'd like a frog if possible, ribbit." "Of course, you'd say that, Asui. Please raise your head, sensei. I like cats. I promise." You do as you're told and see the majority of the class staring at you with excited expressions. Realizing they actually like your idea, you feel emboldened enough to answer their questions. There are other kinds besides animals. And, Asui, I gave you a Karapi sticker. I saw the sticker sheet at the store and immediately thought of you. Asui smiles happily. "Thank you, sensei." A deep sigh brings your attention back to Aizawa, who returns the paper to the desk. "So, that's what you were buying. Of all the crazy things. Well, I guess it's fine since no one seems opposed to it." Bakugo looks like he's about to say something, probably about how he doesn't need one. Before he can, you say, "I put an explosion sticker on yours, Bakugo." He pauses for several seconds before finally nodding his head, appearing satisfied. Apparently, he's fine with anything if it involves explosions of some kind. Aizawa pinches the bridge of his nose. Class is about the end, so why don't you go ahead and return their homework? Grinning, you gather up the papers and start handing them out. You closely watch the students' reactions to their stickers. Midoriya practically beams at his All Might sticker while Asui croaks happily when she sees hers. Yaoyorozu makes a delighted sound when she sees the cute cat on her paper, while Ida's confused reaction at seeing a robot sticker on his paper makes you chuckle. Bakugo appears satisfied with the explosion sticker that says "You're da bomb," while Todoroki just blankly stares in confusion at his ice cream sticker that says he did a nice job. When you notice Ashido's, Kaminari's, Siro's, and Kirishima's disappointed faces, you quickly try to assure them. Just cause you didn't get one this time doesn't mean you won't next time. I have plenty of stickers, so do your best, okay? The 4 grin at you before cheering loudly in agreement. Yeah, that's when the bell rings, signaling the end of the period. Aizawa is the first to head out while you follow after him. Before you can make it through the door, Aoyama's voice stops you. "You look very lovely today, mademoiselle. You're like a gem sparkling in the sunlight." You pause and turn to see him wink at you. Then, upon realizing what he's trying to do, you smile in amusement. In a flash, you open your backpack and start digging through it while the other students watch your actions curiously. Once you find what you're looking for, you pull it out and stick it on Aoyama's cheek. You look at the sparkly star sticker and nod in approval. "It suits you, Aoyama." He blinks in surprise before smiling widely as he poses. "Merci. It is because I am a star that cannot stop twinkling." The other students start crying out in outrage about Aoyama getting a sticker. Your response is to grin mischievously. I never said I'd only give out stickers for homework. Aoyama was the only one brave enough to try a different route, so I rewarded him. Besides, it's always important for a gentleman to know how to compliment a lady. Right, Aoyama? He elegantly flips his hair. Oui, mademoiselle. As you leave the room, you hear some of the students call Aoyama sneaky while others declare passionately that they'll get a sticker, no matter what. You can't help but giggle in response. Your students are just too cute. Then you pause, right in the middle of the hallway. My students, huh? Your expression softens as you resume walking toward the teacher's lounge. I like the sound of that. This time when you enter the teacher's lounge, there are more teachers in the room. Aizawa and Present Mike, who started waving at you as soon as you came inside, are the only ones you've formally met. There's one man who's on the bulky side like All Might with spiky gray hair, wearing a red suit. You have to rack your memory of recent news before you remember this is the blood hero, Vlad King. He's one of the few heroes at UA that hasn't made an appearance in one of your visions aside from that vision you had of all the teachers arriving at the USJ. The other hero you see is the space hero, 13. You always thought her space suit-like costume looked cool. Her quirk, black hole, in your opinion, is super badass. You approach Present Mike, mindful of the curious gazes aimed your way by the two teachers who haven't met you. He cheerfully claps you on the back when you take a seat beside him. Hey, what's up? How was class? Did you bring out your secret weapons yet? Aizawa huffs as he sits at his desk. If by secret weapon you mean the stickers, then yes. First day of grading homework, and she's already giving students stickers. A pout forms on your lips. They liked them. Everyone who received one got really excited. He rolls his eyes before returning to his work. Meanwhile, Vlad King gives you a once-over from his seat at his desk. I was wondering what kind of person you'd be after hearing you'd be working with Eraser, but I definitely wasn't expecting this. Thought you'd be another hard-ass, but he barks out a laugh. You're complete opposites. Your students are going to be so confused dealing with you two together. It's going to be hilarious. Present Mike grins at his friend. You better watch out, Shouta, or your kids might make her their favorite teacher instead of you. And by favorite, I really mean second favorite since I'm obviously everyone's number one teacher. Aizawa scowls at the blonde. You're at the top for being the most annoying teacher. I'll give you that. Both Vlad King and 13 laugh at that remark while Present Mike pouts. The blonde throws his arms around you. You see what I have to put up with daily, why, and Chan. Even though I'm such an awesome friend, Shouta treats me like this. I'm so underappreciated. You calmly pat his back. There. Deep down, you know he loves you. Would a chocolate truffle make you feel better? Yes. He immediately perks up at the offer, so you dig through your backpack for the goodie bag Yaoyorozu gave you. After you pull it out, you slowly untie the ribbon and pull out one of the treats to give to the blonde. Only one, though. This is my first gift from a student, so I need to cherish it. Present Mike grins as he grabs the truffle before throwing it into his mouth. At the same time, you bite into one of your own. Delicious. Your reactions are in complete sync. You even both use English, which is actually pretty strange on your part, but you weren't really thinking when you said it. 13 chuckles, clearly amused by your and Present Mike's twin reactions. You two are quite similar, aren't you? It's no wonder you seem to get along so well. 13, please stop. It's bad enough there's one Mike. I don't want to imagine having another person like him around. You and Present Mike share a look at Aizawa's dry remark before replying simultaneously, bully. Oh no, it's begun. Aizawa deadpans. Vlad King starts laughing again. Oh come on, Eraser. Surely you can handle two of them. Considering all the criminals you've dealt with over the years, these two should be a piece of cake. Aizawa starts grumbling. A piece of diabetes-inducing cake that sends me into a coma as soon as I try it. You grin, you hear that, Mike-san? Aizawa-san thinks we're really sweet. The underground hero makes a pain noise as if he's been stabbed while the other three teachers start laughing uproariously. Present Mike is actually to the point of wheezing as he repeatedly slaps you on the back. It takes a while for him to recover compared to 13 and Vlad King, who calmed down after a few minutes. Once he finally stops laughing, the blonde pulls away from you and starts wiping the tears out of his eyes. Why, En-chan, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Please never change. You do a little bow from your seat, happy to be of service. As you start munching on another truffle, Present Mike gives the bag a curious look. So, what was the gift for? Was it a welcome to our class kinda thing? After you swallow the delightful treat, you reply, partly. She wanted to thank me for scolding Mineta yesterday for being a pervert. I saw a vision where he flipped her skirt on the way to lunch, and I made sure he knew just how I felt about it. Aizawa snorts at your response. You scared the hell out of him. For the rest of the day, he couldn't bring himself to look at any of the girls for too long. I didn't think that was possible. Vlad King grins at you. What do you know? Looks like you can scare kids like Eraser. Maybe you are the perfect team after all. You pout at his words. I'm not gonna try to scare everyone like Aizawa-san. It's only when absolutely necessary. Present Mike pats your shoulder as he nods. That's right. You gotta play the good cop to shout as bad cop. Being mean and scary is his specialty, so it's best to leave that to him. His friend sends him a glare before motioning for you to come over to his desk. Curious, you return your gift to your backpack so Present Mike can't swipe it before heading over to the Underground Hero's desk. Rather than give you some work to do like you expect, Aizawa hands you a phone with a white casing. Curious, you turn it over to see several colorful cats printed on the back, making you gasp in delight. This is, he scratches his chin, your phone. I need a way to get a hold of you during the times we're not together, so I decided to get you one. Don't jack up my bill on the first month, or I'm taking it back. Present Mike scoffs at that. No, you won't. We spent way too much time picking that out for her. You can't take it back after all that hard work. While the two friends start squabbling, you return your focus to the phone in your hands. It's just like one of those smartphones you've seen on TV. You've always wondered what it'd be like to have one. What it'd be like to have someone you could talk to using it. You never thought you'd find out, though. Back then, it just seemed like an impossible dream. Why? Startled, you look up from the phone and are surprised by the sight of Aizawa's blurry figure. Realizing you're crying, you quickly wipe away your tears, so you can clear your vision. Once you do, you're able to see the concern in the older man's eyes, which catches you by surprise. You never expected to be on the receiving end of such a look from him. Before he can question you, you give him a sheepish smile. Sorry, I didn't even realize what I was doing. I was just really happy. This is my first time getting a gift like this. I really appreciate it. Thank you, Aizawa-san. His shoulders relax when you beam at him. You're surprised when he suddenly pulls out a chair from a nearby desk and puts it beside him. Take a seat. You can help me sort through these papers. Nodding, you take a seat after shoving the phone into your pocket and start shifting through the paperwork. You know, Aizawa-san, if I didn't know any better I would think you only want me around to be your paperwork slave. Flad King and Present Mike both snort at your remark while 13 quietly laughs. Meanwhile, Aizawa turns his head and gives you his scary grin. Looks like I've been found out. No, Shouta, Present Mike exclaims. This is the part where you tell her how much you love having her around and thank her for all her help. You're ruining the moment. Don't you watch TV? The Underground Hero rolls his eyes. If you mean those trashy soap operas you like, then no. I'd much rather be sleeping. You giggle as Present Mike makes an offended noise. 13 tries to calm him down by distracting him with information about a new space show she recently watched. While the two pro heroes discuss TV shows, you go back to focusing your attention on organizing the paperwork. Every so often while you're doing this, you can feel Aizawa's eyes on you. But unlike previous times, it doesn't make you feel uncomfortable. Rather, it's the opposite. You feel completely safe. It's a strange feeling, one that you're not used to experiencing. But it's nice, really nice. You can only hope you'll get to enjoy more of it in the future. About an hour before lunch, you find yourself exploring the campus in order to keep yourself preoccupied. Aizawa is fast asleep in the teacher's lounge wrapped up in his sleeping bag, meaning you have no one to assign you more work. At first, you had been worried about upsetting him by going out on your own, but Present Mike quickly assured you that it was fine. The blonde had his own work to do, so you didn't want to stick around and risk distracting him since he really likes to talk when he has a willing audience. That's what led to you deciding to go on a little tour of the school. You really can't get over how huge the campus is. You'll have to settle for just walking around the main building since there's no way you could cover everything in the short time frame you had. You need to be back at the teacher's lounge in time for lunch, so you can make sure Aizawa eats the bento you made him. Knowing him, he'll just sleep through lunch if you don't interfere. Unfortunately, you end up getting lost about 40 minutes into your walk, so you're not sure where you need to go in order to make it back to the teacher's lounge. That's why it seems unlikely that you'll reach your destination in time. When the lunch bell eventually rings while you're trying to gather your bearings, you release a heavy sigh. Looks like you really are going to be running late to lunch. As you continue to wander the halls, hoping you'll run into someone, you come across a window and decide to peek outside in hopes you'll recognize the scenery. Instead, you see a grassy area with a tall, unfamiliar tree in the center. What has you leaning closer to the window is the spot of purple you see. After a few seconds of squinting, you realize there's a student with purple hair lying underneath the tree. It appears that he'd rather take a nap outside than go to the cafeteria for lunch. It's at that moment the familiar feeling of an oncoming vision hits you, catching you by surprise. The current scenery fades and is replaced by what appears to be a battle between Midoriya and the purple-haired student you just saw. Taking in the sight of the familiar stadium, you realize this must be a vision of a fight to be held at the sports festival, an event UA holds every year for all its students to participate in. You watch amazed as the purple-haired boy, whose name according to Present Mike's loud announcer voice is Shinso Hitoshi, uses his impressive brainwashing quirk to command Midoriya to walk out of bounds. Just when it looks like your student will lose, he miraculously breaks free of the mind control, much to your delight. He then proceeds to fight hand-to-hand with Shinso. As they're scrapping, The purple-haired boy starts yelling about his situation, saying how blessed Midoriya is to have a quirk that easily allows him to follow his dreams. While in Shinso's case, he couldn't pass the practical exam because of his quirk's nature. I get it. He realized brainwashing would be useless against the robots from the exam. He didn't stand a chance. The vision ends with Midoriya winning the fight by throwing Shinso out of the ring. After your sight returns to normal, your gaze focuses on Shinso, who's still outside under the tree. A few seconds later, you find yourself running toward the nearest exit. It takes you a few minutes, but you finally find the right door that'll get you outside where you last saw Shinso. On your way out, you come across a vending machine and decide to buy 2 juices before quickly stashing them in your backpack. It never hurts to have a peace offering just in case. You honestly have no idea what you're doing. By all means, this is probably one of the strangest things you've ever done. You have no reason to approach this student. According to your vision, he's from the general department, which is kind of out of your jurisdiction. Your job is to look after Class 1 and possibly Class 1B if the 2 classes are to ever do a joint activity. You shouldn't involve yourself in this kid's life just because of your stupid quirk. Despite knowing this, you can't stop yourself. Even though you shouldn't meddle in things that don't concern you, you still keep running straight for that boy. When you arrive at your destination, you take a few seconds to catch your breath. After you do that, you walk until you're right in front of Shinso, who's lying on his back with his eyes closed. Besides the color of his hair, what catches your attention the most is the dark bags under his eyes. Damn, maybe you should reconsider this. If he has sleeping problems, the last thing he needs is you coming over to disturb him. Unfortunately, before you can try to leave, Shinso suddenly opens his eyes and aims his gaze in your direction, making you freeze. He seems surprised by your appearance, leading to him staring for several seconds. You figure it's because of your uniform since he probably doesn't recognize it. You give him a wave as you awkwardly smile. Hi, sorry if I woke you. I could leave if I'm bothering you. He moves to sit up and leans back against the tree. It's fine. I wasn't really sleeping, just resting my eyes. Your shoulders slump in relief. Oh good. At least, you haven't ruined things right from the start. That uniform. Are you a student or member of the staff? His words make you jolt in surprise. You figured he'd probably be curious about you, but you didn't think he'd actually ask you. You had expected him to want you to leave him alone. Happy that he's initiating the conversation, you grin. If I tell you, will you let me sit with you? Shinso raises an eyebrow before shrugging his shoulders. Sure, it's not like it's my personal tree or anything. You can sit wherever you want. Chuckling, you take a seat on the grass and cross your legs so that you're sitting Indian style. Okay, so to answer your question, I'm not a student. However, I'm not technically a teacher either. I'm a TAL for Class 1A. I just started the other day. He gives you an interested look. That explains why I've never seen you or your uniform, but I had no idea the heroics course had TAs. You rub your neck sheepishly. Yeah, there were some special circumstances that led to my sudden employment. It's basically because of my quirk. Shinso tilts his head curiously. Your quirk. Nodding, you pull off your backpack and set it on the ground. My quirk allows me to see visions of the future, but it's random. I have no control of what I see or when I see it. It's more trouble than it's worth, but even though I'm not a hero, I still wanted to be able to help someone with it. When I got a vision foretelling danger for UA, I knew I had to tell them. And that somehow led to me becoming a TA. Pretty crazy, I know. The purple-haired boy scratches his head. It's not like the craziest thing to ever happen, considering it's normal for people to have multiple arms or shoot lasers out of their eyes. The world's a weird place. His comment makes you laugh. He's definitely not wrong. Your quirk is pretty normal compared to some people's. You probably shouldn't complain so much about it. It's at that moment you hear a loud growling noise. At first, you think it's your own stomach, but then you notice the light flush on Shinso's cheeks. You give him an amused smile. Looks like you shouldn't be skipping lunch. He averts his gaze as he rubs the back of his neck. I wasn't hungry before. I was more tired than anything, so I came out here to lie down. I guess all the talking worked up my appetite. That's when you get an idea. You quickly dig through your backpack and pull out the bento you made for yourself. It's a good thing you didn't make anything today that requires an eating utensil. Shinso just stares in surprise when you offer him an rice bowl along with one of the juices you bought earlier. After a few seconds, he shakes himself out of his stupor and averts his gaze away from the food. You don't have to share your food. I'm fine, really. You roll your eyes. He sounds just like Aizawa. I know I don't have to. I want to. Just take the food, Shinso. Suddenly, he freezes, making you wonder what you said to make him react like that. It's when you go over your last sentence that you realize what it was. The GD student gives you a suspicious look. I never told you my name. How do you know it? Realizing you'll have to explain a little of what you saw in your vision, you wave the food and drink at him. I'll tell you if you eat the food. Deal? For several seconds, it looks like he's waging an internal war with himself, but then he finally accepts the food and drink. You wait until he actually takes a bite before explaining yourself. Earlier, I had a vision that you were in. I got it after I saw you from the nearby window. Shinso raises an eyebrow after he swallows the bite he just took. A vision of me. What was it about? You take a bite of your food, so you can have a few seconds to ponder how to respond to that question. After you take a sip of your juice, you reply, I can't really give you any details since it wouldn't be fair to your opponent, but I saw you fighting at the sports festival. Well, I'm pretty sure it was the sports festival. It looked like it was a school event. And that's the only thing I can think of that makes all the student courses participate. He nods his head. That's probably what it was. I can't imagine any other event that would involve a general department student actually being in a fight. A smirk rises to his lips. Usually, fighting isn't until the later rounds. Guess that means I'll be making it pretty far. You grin at his smug look. Considering how awesome your quirk is, I'm not surprised that you make it so far, Shinso. It's really impressive. Shinso makes a choked noise and suddenly starts coughing, making you panic. You quickly lean over to smack him hard on the back. Thankfully, that does the trick since his breathing starts to calm down after that. You give him a concerned look. Are you all right? Instead of answering right away, the purple-haired student grabs his juice and takes a few quick sips. Rather than pester him, you go back to your own food and wait for him to speak. After a few minutes, you hear him quietly ask, Did you really mean that? What you said about my quirk? Your expression softens when you notice the slight glimmer of hope in his eyes. Of course, I did. No matter what anyone else says about it, it's an amazing quirk. You could help so many people with it, like stop hostage situations or calm people down. Hell, you could literally tell a villain to just shut up and surrender and save everyone a lot of trouble. That sounds like an ideal quirk for a hero. He snorts loudly, catching you by surprise. You watch with wide eyes as the boy quietly snickers into his hand. This lasts for several minutes, and you can't help but wonder when was the last time Shinso laughed like this. You really hope this isn't an unusual thing for him. Once he finally calms down, a sheepish grin forms on his face. Sorry, I didn't mean to laugh that much. You smile when you notice the happy gleam in his eyes that wasn't present earlier. It's fine. I'm glad you think I'm so funny. Maybe I should consider a side career as a comedian. Shinso snorts as he shakes his head. Just don't quit your day job. Pouting, you throw an apple slice at him which he fumbles to catch. I don't want to hear that from the guy who just spent several minutes laughing at my obviously hilarious commentary. He rolls his eyes as he munches on the apple slice. Right, absolutely hilarious. Your response is to throw another apple slice at him. This time he catches it without any trouble, so it's possible he was expecting it. Maybe he's doing this on purpose now to get more food out of you. If he is, it's working. The next several minutes pass in companionable silence as the two of you work on clearing out your bento. It's a good thing you packed extra with the expectation of having to share. You figured Present Mike and Midnight would want to try your cooking since they showed an interest last night when you told them you could cook. Unfortunately, it looks like they'll have to wait another day to try your food. Wanting to get to know Shinso better, you decide to learn more about his desire to be a hero. Hey, Shinso, why do you want to become a hero? Any particular reason? Shinso goes still at your words before giving you a calculative look. After a few seconds, the GD student replies, I want to prove everyone wrong. I want to show them I can become a hero, even with a so-called villain's quirk. I want to surpass all those students with their heroic quirks who have it so easy and don't even realize it. I'll work harder than all of them. A frown forms on your lips. While everyone has their own reasons for becoming a hero and you have no right to judge, you can't help but worry about his. You understand why he feels that way, but is it really okay to be motivated so much by spite? That's when you get an idea. Tell me, would you always want to be a hero, no matter what? Even if you had grown up with a completely different quirk? He pauses to consider your question. As his expression turns contemplative, he absent-mindedly munches on another rice ball. A few minutes later, he answers, I've always liked heroes and have wanted to be one since I was a kid. So, I think I would have still tried to be one even if I didn't have this quirk. You smile at his response. So, what was your reason for being a hero as a kid? Before people started criticizing your quirk, why did you want to become a hero? Shinso just stares, wearing a confused expression. After a few seconds, realization dawns his features as he figures out where you're going with this. I wanted to help people, to save them. I never really cared about being flashy and standing out. I just always admired how hard the heroes worked to save everyone. They never gave up until the bad guys were defeated. The purple-haired boy averts his embarrassed gaze as he starts rubbing the back of his neck. I wanted to be like that too. Beaming, you reach over to clap the boy hard on the shoulder, causing him to jolt in surprise. That's a wonderful reason, Shinso. If you keep working hard like you've been doing, I think you can do it. You'll make a wonderful hero. I'm looking forward to seeing more of your bright future. His eyes widen at your words before he abruptly looks away, despite his best efforts to hide his face with his hand. You can see the tips of his ears turn red, making you laugh. Aw, looks like you have a cute side after all, Shinso. When the GD student makes a choked noise, you pull your hand away in an attempt to give him some space. As he tries to calm down, you decide there's something else you want to tell Shinso. Hey, Shinso, could you do me a favor? What is it? A grin forms on your face when you see him give you a suspicious look. It's nothing bad, I promise. I just want you to take a close look at your opponent when you're fighting at the sports festival. At his confused look, you continue. You mentioned during the fight how easy people with heroic quirks have it compared to people with quirks like yours. I won't deny that there is some truth to those words, but your opponent isn't like that at all. You remember all the visions you had of Midoriya's childhood and all the struggles he overcame to get to where he is now. They know what it's like to be bullied, to have someone ridicule their dream. Their quirk developed late, so they went through a lot of pain up until that point. They worked really hard to get to where they are now. For several seconds, Shinso just stares, obviously surprised by your words, but then he releases a deep sigh. So, basically, you're saying I end up becoming a hypocrite by judging someone else based off their quirk before getting to know them. Nice. Good going, me. Shrugging, you finish off the last rice ball. In your defense, it's not like you have the opportunity to chat and get to know each other while you're competing. I do think that's a good idea, though. They'd be an awesome friend to have. They'd love your quirk and probably come up with 100 different ways for you to use it that not even you have thought of yet. He raises an eyebrow at you. You can't be serious. You grin broadly as you nod. I am 100% serious. They are amazing at analyzing quirks and are very good at finding ways that every quirk can be used for heroics. I'm not kidding when I say they would readily encourage everyone to become a hero, no matter what their quirk was. It's obvious he's having a difficult time believing you. Considering his past, you can't really blame him. If you ever want to meet them, just let me know, and I'll introduce you. I promise you won't regret it. You want me to become friends with the person I'm gonna fight at the sports festival? Seriously? Shinso asks. His deadpan expression makes you laugh. Hey, nothing's wrong with having a friendly rival. Besides, as long as you both promise to not go easy on each other, then I don't see the problem. Shinso pinches the bridge of his nose. I can think of several problems. The main one being they'll find out about my quirk, so I'll lose my advantage during the fight. You wince at his words. Hate to break it to you, buddy, but they already know about it going into the fight. I don't know how, but I could tell at the beginning of the fight that they knew not to answer you. Of course, you didn't let that stop you. A smirk forms on his lips. I'm told I'm an amazing conversationalist. The smirk fades when he sighs. I'm not really interested in making friends, but I'll think about it. That's when you hear the bell ring, signaling the end of lunch. As you gather your stuff together, Shinso rises to his feet. You're surprised when bows his head. Thanks for the meal. Grinning, you decide to take advantage of his position by reaching to ruffle his hair after you stand. You laugh at his scowl. Your hair is already messy. It's not like it can get any worse. He huffs as he runs a hand through his hair. Can't really argue with that. As the two of you walk back together to the building, you wonder if you'll get another opportunity to talk to the GD student. There aren't really any reasons you can think of that could lead to you two hanging out again. Still, you can't help but find yourself really interested in his future. Much like how you feel about your current students, you really want to somehow invest some time into Shinso's future as well. Unlike Class 1A, he doesn't really have anyone to encourage his pursuit of becoming a hero. That's why you can't help but wish there was something you could do for him, since every kid deserves a person who supports their dream. No kid should be in the same kind of situation Midoriya was in for the majority of his childhood. It's at that moment another really crazy idea comes to mind. You immediately dismiss it at first, since you think you'd be crossing a line if you brought it up. But at the same time, it's the only thing you can think of that might help the boy. Just as you're about to part ways with Shinso, you decide to throw caution to the wind and ask, Hey, Shinso, what kind of training do you plan on doing for the sports festival? At his raised eyebrow, you grin, relax. I don't plan on sharing your training secrets or anything. I was just wondering if you'd like a workout buddy. The purple-haired student freezes, his eyes the largest you've ever seen them. You're not suggesting. Nodding, you jab a thumb at yourself. I was thinking I should do a little training myself. Staying physically fit is important, and I want to be a good example for my students. I think it'd be nice to have someone else to train with me. Shinso clenches his fists at his sides as he frowns. Why are you doing this? Being so nice to me. Wouldn't you rather ask one of your own students instead? You scratch your head. It's hard to explain, but because of my quirk, I'm always thinking about people's futures. When I see someone amazing, I can't help but wonder what their future will be like, since I don't get visions for everyone I see. In your case, a warm smile forms on your lips. I want to invest in your future. I think you're going to do a lot of great things and become an amazing hero, Shinso. I just want to be one of the people who helps you get there. At his dumbfounded expression, your smile turns sheepish. Sorry, that kinda sounds selfish, but after spending so long just watching and not interfering, I want to actually get involved and be a part of molding the future. Just like how I want to protect my students' futures, I want to do the same for yours. You have just as much a right as they do after all. I know I'm not much, but if there's anything I can do to help you, I want to. For several seconds, he remains silent. Then, his expression relaxes as he grins. So, you're a busybody then? A laugh escapes you before you can even try to stop it. Well, you're not wrong. I can't really deny it. Shinso tilts his head as he studies you for a moment. Eventually, he pulls out his cell phone, which has a purple case with a black cat on the back. If we're gonna be training together, I'll need a way to contact you. Beaming, you pull out the new cell phone Aizawa got you. You watch with amusement as the student's eyes zero in on your phone case. After a few seconds, he simply nods. Yeah, this is good. With that, the two of you exchange numbers. After you both finish, Shinso takes off down the hall, so he won't be late for class. Technically, you should scold him for running in the hallway since you're a teacher, but considering it's your fault he's late, you decide not to worry about it. Thankfully, after the two of you part ways, you manage to find the teacher's lounge without getting lost. When you see a familiar yellow caterpillar on the couch, you realize that Aizawa slept through lunch. You were afraid this would happen. Ignoring the other teachers, you approach the underground hero and start shaking his shoulder. Aizawa-san, you slept through lunch, didn't you? That's not healthy. I made you a bento and everything. Don't waste all my hard work. He starts groaning, obviously displeased with being woken up. You're too loud. You've been hanging around Mike too much. Hey, I'm an amazing influence unlike you. Present Mike retorts. How dare you waste a homemade lunch made by your cute top? You villain. Much to your surprise, several of the teachers present cheer in agreement, including Midnight, who pulls out her whip as she licks her lips. Hey, why, and would you like me to deliver some punishment? It's the best way to handle men like Aizawa, or they'll never learn. Scowling, Aizawa rises from his seat, still completely wrapped up in his sleeping bag. I stand corrected. You and Mike both are horrible influences on her. When the two addressed heroes begin to loudly complain, the grumpy teacher gets out of his sleeping bag and heads for his desk. You watch closely as he opens a drawer and pulls out the lunch you made him. He takes a bite out of one of the rice balls you made before raising an eyebrow at you. Happy now? Beaming, you clap your hands together excitedly. Delighted. Thank you. Let me know if you have any problems with the taste. Vlad King starts laughing. Rather than a talk, it's like Eraser has gotten another mother. One of the other heroes, whom you recognize as Ectoplasm, chuckles at the comment. So it would seem. Aizawa proceeds to glare at everyone since they're either laughing or nodding in agreement. His ire only increases when Present Mike and Midnight start pestering him about sharing his food with them, which he refuses to do. That's what leads you to interfering since it looks like he's seconds away from trying to maim them both. Thankfully, with a promise of you bringing food to share tomorrow, the two calm down and head back to their desks. Taking a seat beside Aizawa, you spend the rest of the period looking through your phone and familiarizing yourself with it. Between that and the occasional paperwork thrown your way, the afternoon passes pretty uneventfully, making you wonder if this is how the rest of your day will pass. You eventually find out that that's not the case during the last period of the day, which really shouldn't be a surprise. After all, things are rarely uneventful when Class 1 is concerned, and something tells you that won't ever change. Much to your surprise, instead of teaching, Aizawa decides to make the last hour of school a study period. After making that declaration, he quickly wraps himself up in his sleeping bag while the students start reading or working on their homework. Since you currently have nothing to do, you let your gaze roam across the classroom and absent-mindedly study the students' expressions. It's when your eyes eventually fall on Kaminari that you pause. For some reason, he's just blankly staring at his desk, looking as if he has already given up, even though he probably hasn't been working for more than 10 minutes. That's when you remember seeing his academic ranking from middle school on his profile. Apparently, academics are not his strong point. That's when you get an idea. What if you offered to help him with his homework? You wouldn't just give him the answers, of course, but you could offer to walk him through the process. Maybe you could find out what exactly is troubling him. Thinking it won't hurt to try, you quietly rise from your seat and make your way to Kaminari's desk. Both Shaoji and Ajiro raise their heads from their work to give you curious looks, and so does Jiru when you come to a stop in the space between her and Kaminari's desks. Your response is to grin and place a finger against your lips. Their gazes are still on you when you crouch down by Kaminari, who is so zoned out that he hasn't even noticed your arrival, and whisper, "Hey, Kaminari, what's wrong?" He jumps in his seat before giving you a wide-eyed look. "Holy shit, you scared the crap out of me." A few of his classmates snicker quietly at his remark while you give him an amused look. "Sorry about that. Are you all right?" The blonde grins as he rubs the back of his neck. "Oh yeah, I'm cool. So, did you need me for something, sensei?" You shake your head. "It's the opposite actually. I was wondering if you wanted any help with your homework. His eyes grow as large as saucers. As seriously, fighting back the urge to laugh at his expression, you give him a nod. Yep, I can't do much on the hero side of things. But if you're having problems with any of your regular academic subjects, I'll be happy to lend a hand. You start to panic when tears suddenly start streaming down his face. Kaminari, are you okay? He immediately starts scrubbing his face clean before giving you a pleading look. Please help me, please. A sigh of relief escapes you when you realize nothing's wrong. Soon after, you take a look at the papers on his desk and realize he's trying to do his math homework. By the looks of it, it's just simple algebra, but he's obviously struggling. I'll take you through the problems step by step. Okay. You remark, feel free to stop me at any time if you have a question, and you can tell me to repeat myself if you miss something I say. Kaminari looks at you like you're the person who just saved his life. Considering the situation, he probably feels that way. Yes, ma'am. So, that's how you tackle every problem. You explain the process, how to work the formula, and correct him whenever he makes a mistake, which, unfortunately for Kaminari, is quite often. Still, he doesn't give up. Once he realizes you won't get mad at him for asking, the blonde keeps peppering you with questions. Unbeknownst to you, Kaminari isn't the only student listening to your tutoring. Several students, including Ashido, Kirishima, and Siro, who are all sitting nearby, are paying extremely close attention to your explanations. Thankfully, by the time the last bell of the day rings, you manage to get Kaminari through all of his math homework. Once he realizes he's actually done, the blonde stares at the homework in amazement. I did it. With a big grin, he pumps his fist into the air. I did it. Yes, go, me. Giggling, you reach into your backpack and pull out a Pikachu sticker which you place on his hand. Good job, Kaminari. I knew you could do it. And now, he looks like he's about to cry again. Sensei, thank you so much. You made it so much easier to understand. You're like some kind of math goddess. You then pull out a sucker and hand it to him. You're welcome. Just don't cry. Aizawa-san is supposed to be the teacher that invokes tears from students, not me. His eyes widen with wonder. I get a sticker and a sucker. With a laugh, you rise from your crouched position. Yep, you worked really hard, so I think you deserve both. It's a special one-time service. Hey, what about me, sensei? Turning toward Ashido, you see her holding up her own completed math homework and pointing vigorously at it. I was paying attention too, and I finished all the problems. After you move over to her desk, you see that she's right. Everything is completed and appears to be right. Do you want both too? She beams at you excitedly. Yes, please. Amused, you pull out an alien sticker and place it on her hand, making her squeal with delight. You then pull out a pixie stick and give it to her. Good job, Ashido. I didn't realize other students would be listening to me. But if my explanations were helpful, I'm glad. You're surprised when Ashido stands up and hugs you. Thank you, sensei. Whenever I need help, can I come ask you questions about homework? Smiling, you gently pat her on the back. Of course, you can. You can always come to me for help. Her smile grows at your words. After quickly releasing you, she pumps her fist into the air and cheers excitedly. Soon after, Ashido starts happily eating her candy, proving she has no interest in saving it for later, much to your amusement. When you hear sniffling, you turn to see Kirishima, watching you with teary eyes. That's just so manly. You're so cool, sensei. The comment puzzles you, making you wonder what you should say in response. Jiru, who's on her way out of the classroom, notices this and rolls her eyes. Kirishima, you can't just call a girl manly, especially not a teacher. Look at her. She doesn't know how to react. His eyes grow large. Sorry, sensei. I didn't mean it in a bad way, I swear. I just thought you were really cool helping Kaminari and Ashido like that. He rubs the back of his neck sheepishly. Your explanations were also really helpful to me too. So, thanks. Siro gives you a thumbs up as he gathers his stuff together. Same here. Thanks a lot. That's when Dark Shadow makes an appearance. Fumikage was paying close attention too. He hates math, but your explanation actually seemed to help him understand it better. So, thanks, YN. Tokoyami sighs as he adjusts his book bag on his back. The world of numbers is dark and inexplicable. Whoever enters it cannot tread lightly, or they will be forever lost in its maddening labyrinth. Translation, math sucks. Dark Shadow remarks. The avian featured student nods his head. Indeed, Dark Shadow catches you by surprise when he approaches you rather than disappear into Tokoyami's chest. Hey, is that candy just for students? Or is it for everyone? His vessel gives him an exasperated look. You don't even need to eat. The shadow creature shrugs. Doesn't mean I can't enjoy the taste. I like candy. Amused, you give him a curious look. What kind of candy do you like? Dark Shadow grins as he moves to drape himself across your shoulders. I like all kinds, but I really like Twizzlers. So does Fumikage. He also loves apple-flavored candy. He crows in delight when you pull some Twizzlers out and give them to him. I love you, YN. You're the best. Your gaze falls on Tokoyami's obviously embarrassed form. Never thought I'd have a quirk declare his love for me. That's a new one. Super adorable, I gotta admit. The student bows his head. I apologize. He can be overly affectionate at times. I will have another talk with him. Grinning, you move to clap him on the shoulder while the other hand offers him some Twizzlers. Don't worry about it. Thanks to him, I know what candy you like now. Here's your reward for paying such close attention to my lesson. Tokoyami hesitantly accepts the treat, giving you a small nod. Thank you. That's when you notice Kirishima's and Shiro's expectant expressions. Behind them, Kaminari and Ashido are showing each other the stickers they received. You're surprised the two boys were willing to stay behind just for some candy, considering most of the class has already left by now. Not wanting to disappoint them, you give Kirishima some rock candy, and upon realizing he likes orange-flavored candy, you hand Shiro a sucker with that flavor. In addition to the candy, Kirishima gets a boulder sticker with the words rock on, while Shiro gets a cool spider sticker. Tokoyami also leaves with a sticker after Dark Shadow asks for one. The quirk gets a shiny star sticker while the student receives a black moon sticker which is, according to him, as dark as my soul. Following after Kirishima's group, Tokoyami exits the classroom with Dark Shadow who's cackling at his vessel's sticker comment. After they leave, you turn toward Aizawa's desk and are surprised to see him still wrapped up in his sleeping bag. He shakes his head as he huffs. At this rate, you'll be out of stickers within a week. I can't believe you even bought candy. Seriously? You pout. They like it, so it's fine, isn't it? It's not hurting anyone. I won't be spoiling them if I give the rewards in small doses. I won't go overboard. Aizawa rolls his eyes as he pulls himself out of his sleeping bag and rises to his feet. Whatever, let's go. I'm tired. The corners of your lips pull upward. You're always tired, Aizawa-san. Damn straight I am. Aizawa retorts, everything is exhausting. You'll realize that soon enough. Somehow, you doubt you'll ever reach his level of exhaustion, but of course, this is only your second day. Your excitement will probably eventually wane further into the semester, but for now, you're going to make the most of it. You're looking forward to seeing what the future holds.